fire, which is burning near Runyon Canyon. There's the Palisades fire, which is burning in Pacific Palisades and Malibu. There's the Eaton fire, which is burning in Altadena and Pasadena area. And then there is the fire burning in Sylmar as well. So those, and then we've seen some smaller fires burning in different neighborhoods as well throughout the day that aren't quite as serious in terms of threats. But this thing's a pretty massive fireball, especially when you look at it at night.
Yeah, and it seems to, despite the water, the line of water there that we've seen, which is good to see, it's not necessarily dampening those flames. We do have Matthew Seedorf. He is on his way to this fire. He was over the hill in the Hollywood Hills for the Sunset Fire. Earlier, he was at the Palisades Fire, and now he is making his way, he and his photographer are making their way to this area. So as soon as he arrives here, we will be able to bring you a live report from the roads below. And
you can imagine for our crews, just like everybody else driving, there's lots of road closures because of all of this, lots of increased traffic because of all these different scenes that we're seeing, which makes it challenging to get around. And look, Marla, I think we're going to be near the point where this roof may collapse as well.
Yeah, that's imminent.
Yeah, so let's show you, as we wait for that, let's show you some video from just a short time ago. This is what we watched together, and you just watched that. It's just devastating to see. I mean, a fire is so awe-inspiring when you see it, and then you also think about, you know, the memories and the individuals who are impacted in such a devastating way when we watch that all happen.
It almost seems unbelievable that we've had fire after fire after fire after fire. Mm-hmm. You know, we thought the Sunset Fire, that was astonishing that that one erupted over the hill, and now it was easy for us to get it confused, because how could you think that another massive fire would erupt like this and on the other side of the hill? And here we are, and look at the plume of smoke. As you know, the firefight down below continues. LAFD already strapped so thin.
Right, and this is bad news for our friends in the Studio City neighborhood, but frankly, good news for our friends in the Hollywood Hills, because this means that we still have not seen any structures fully engulfed by the Sunset Fire, which was something that we were really concerned about. So our understanding now is we don't know of any structures lost there. LAFD really doing some terrific work there, but now they're concerned about what we're seeing here in Studio City.
If you are just joining our coverage as we approach 9:30, this is a brand new fire that has erupted in the Studio City Hills. This is a house fire. It was a 4-story residence that has since crumbled, and then also an adjacent home has caught fire. According to LAFD, they're in their defensive mode, and this is on North Sunswept Drive in Studio City. We do have a crew on their way from covering the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills to bring you the latest on the ground here in Studio City.
So when they say defensive mode, what that means is basically, we know we're not putting this thing out. We're trying to limit the damage to everything else. We're trying to stop the embers. We're trying to protect the other property nearby, because the house itself is going down. Oh, now we saw a water drop right there that came in. We'll see if that makes a difference. That was impressive to see from Skyfox, and you get a sense of where we are. This is, you know, Studio City. We're looking right there on the different streets of Ventura Boulevard, Laurel Terrace, and then you see some of the emergency crews staging right there. You know, this is a neighborhood that we have not talked about in the last couple days when we've seen all these fires. They've basically been spared. Let's hope that they are able to contain this thing. And that is where having those, whoa, okay, we just saw a power pole sort of explode right there. You see that, sparking? That's not a good, that's a concerning sight for everybody in the neighborhood. Very dangerous to be around there. That's probably going to mean a loss of power for people in that neighborhood too. So, you know, having the water from the air could be really helpful in preventing this fire from being something that, say, takes out, 100 homes, which is what we were seeing in Pacific Palisades, where something like that starts and the winds were so intense and there was no water to put it on it from the air, and then all of a sudden 1,000 homes are gone. Let's hope that we're able to prevent that. But you do see, looks like these embers are flying in different directions and creating little spot fires in different directions, and that's certainly a scary sight for people in this neighborhood.
Sky Fox bringing you these live pictures of a house fire, a couple of them now in the Studio City Hills, and it's really unbelievable that, we've gotten to this point. LAFD doing what they can, given the strapped resources. They're putting out information on their social media channels. We check there, but we appreciate you leaning on us. Of course, if you're in this neighborhood and you know anything about this, if you have heard from authorities, please let us know here at Fox LA. We're happy to have your voice join us as well, because we're trying to cover this the best we can while our reporter gets there on the ground. It looks like now this has taken over the hillside, the vegetation.
Yeah, look at all that vegetation. I mean, it looks like this is just ripe fuel that is ready to burn, and now we see this thing sort of exploding. We haven't seen a water drop on this, and so now this is, as you look near Goodland Avenue, concern as this thing is really starting to take off. Let's talk about the winds. Adam Kruger has been tracking that. We haven't talked much about Studio City. Let's talk about their weather.
Yeah, and one thing before we even get to any maps or graphics or anything, if we just hold this shot, I mean, you see that the smoke is mostly going up. I mean, yes, there's a breeze there, but this is not the situation weather-wise that we saw last night or early this morning, where the smoke was going sideways and the flames were going sideways. Not quite that scenario. So that's a little bit better just in terms of the weather conditions. We have seen a reduction of the winds for sure tonight. We expect the winds to actually get even a little bit lighter tonight before they pick up once again going into tomorrow. And when I say pick up, they won't get extreme like what we had in the last 12, 24 hours, but they will increase a little bit more. But, and you mentioned it, it's just there is so much happening right now in so many spots. It is overwhelming for sure just to keep track of, let alone watch and feel for these people that are going through this, and feel for the crews that are doing what they can to mitigate what's going on out there. But just visually, you can see that the wind, you can tell from the flames and the smoke, not nearly as severe as what we had in the last 24 hours. I do have pulled up in the control room, and I don't know if we can, yeah, perfect. All right, so this is what we're looking at now. I wanted to get this up because this is from NOAA, and I can show a little more detail on this than what I have available on our weather system here. And what we're looking at is current wind gusts. I know the numbers are on the small side, but you get the idea. Maybe if you get a little closer to your TV, you can see all of them. But we've got gusts that are mostly you see a lot of single digits here. You get up into some of the foothills and the mountains and the valleys. Obviously, there are some higher wind gusts right now, 20, 30 miles per hour. These are kind of color-coded, which is nice, too. So if you see some orange numbers, that's, 50 in the 50s. And so now as we switch to this is over the last 24 hours, the highest gusts that were measured in some spots. You'll notice there are some 90s on there. There are some, I see a 94. I see a few 90s. I see some 80s. And so this was the extreme, unprecedented type of wind gusts we had in the last 24 hours that, you take the fires out of this, and even this alone, just the winds would be incredible. And then, of course, you add the fires on top. We have all the devastation going on right now. So, again, what you're seeing here is various weather stations, the peak wind gusts they received or got in the last 24 hours. Notice especially in some of the higher elevations, 70s, 80s, even over 90 miles per hour. If we switch back to the first tab, though, again, that's going to show you the current wind gusts. The first image we had up here And if we get to that on the computer, you'll see that, again, a lot of these numbers, you just cut them in half or even less than half, and that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the improvement we were looking forward to at the end of the day today, and continuing into tonight, these numbers will keep going down. But again, you see just these spots, especially in the mountains, 30, 40, 50 miles per hour still ongoing. And then you have the difference across, let's just say, the LA basin. Look at that, 6, 8, 2, 1. I mean, these are some low numbers in many spots as well. So that's a little bit of good news to see right there. Now, if we can switch to what we would call Weather 1, the standard weather system here, and show you, what our forecast is. I'll show you what the winds are looking like as we continue into the night here. First, though, just on our headlines, I do want to say we have a red flag warning that's still ongoing all the way through Friday. It is no longer a PDS, which is particularly dangerous situation. We've talked about that many times. That was the red flag warning we had before. Those are issued for the most extreme circumstances. It was the third time one of those was issued this season, but only the fourth time since 2020. They're relatively rare, just not the case this season. Anyway, now we switch from that to a regular red flag warning. Still means it's breezy, still means it's going to be very dry, still means weather conditions are favorable for fires to spread. But the winds will relax as we go through the overnight here, and then the next wind peak, kind of uptick in the winds, will start to happen midday Thursday, and that lasts into Friday morning. And that's the part of the forecast I'm going to show you here in a moment. We do have the high wind warning continuing for all these areas in this yellowish color until 10 o'clock tonight, and then the high wind warning expires. We may see some wind advisories, which is like one classification below that. Those may continue into tomorrow or maybe even Friday. But this is issued as winds may get as high as 60, and again, that's mostly going to be some of the higher elevations, and again, that ends at 10 o'clock tonight. Then we have the red flag warning, like I said, and this is a regular red flag warning, continues through Friday. And one thing that changed just about an hour or two ago is that a good portion of the LA basin and the city of Los Angeles was included back into this red flag warning. The National Weather Service had this area carved out. They've included it now. And so all areas in this magenta color, which is basically everywhere except right along the coastline from LA down to Orange County, all these areas on a red flag warning through the day on Friday. Officially ends at 6 p.m. on Friday. Now let's look at those crucial forecast wind gusts. And as we show you going through the night here, I'll pause it at 1 o'clock in the morning. This is good to see. Yes, it's still going to be breezy, especially up in the mountains and the higher elevations, but a lot of the area will see much lower wind speeds. We see things then ramp back up. So this is that next uptick I was talking about as winds begin to peak once again as we go through late tomorrow morning into midday tomorrow. So this is now paused at noon, and you see we're back to some wind gusts that'll be over 35. Anywhere you see the purple color is 35 or above. And then the numbers here, you see some 50s, you see 60 miles per hour. This is going to continue to make the efforts difficult in terms of trying to knock down and contain the multiple fires that we have burning right now. Thursday afternoon, still gusty. Again, not extreme, but it's still breezy, still pretty windy. We still have dry air. And then as we go into Friday morning, there are some areas that are still windy. We go into Friday late day, and then we are pretty much wrapping up our Santa Ana wind event. And again, it's 6 p.m. Friday, the cutoff for when the red flag warnings end. Another thing I want to show you is tracking the humidity, which is, of all the factors that are involved in fire weather conditions, wind and humidity are most important. Of course, very dry vegetation helps fires grow as well, and we know that the vegetation is extremely dry as it's been relatively rain-free, or virtually rain-free, I should say, for about 8 months. Yes, there's been a little here and there, but hardly anything. All right, so relative humidity been very low today. Now you'll notice much higher humidity closer to the coast. We actually see a little recovery in the humidities there, and that's why I believe the National Weather Service has just carved out that little area not included in the red flag warning. Everywhere else, though, the humidity is a factor for sure. Down below 20%, down below 10% in some spots tomorrow afternoon. And even continuing into Friday, again, near the coast and around the LA basin, it's getting more humid, which is good, but we still see some pretty dry air there on Friday morning, and especially still on Friday afternoon. So that's another big problem as to why the fire weather conditions continue through Friday. It's not all about the wind. It's also the fact that the air will be really dry. And then we'll end right here looking at air quality. And we've seen some of the sensors, especially near the Eaton fire, and that's no surprise. We've seen these get into the bad range or unhealthy range at times today. You see a couple of those red dots right there, and that would indicate that there's a couple of sensors measuring unhealthy air right now. We don't have a sensor, on every single neighborhood block, but you can imagine just in the vicinity of some of these fires, for example, the Palisades fire, if you're around that smoke, you're probably seeing some at least somewhat unhealthy air near you. And I would imagine for many days, as these fires burn to some capacity, we'll probably see air quality issues. That'll be kind of more of a long-term thing. But again, to just reiterate, one of the most important things here with the winds, they're dying down tonight. That's good. Air's still going to be very dry, though. And then the winds start coming back up tomorrow midday through Friday morning. Not extreme like what we've had. We're past the worst of the winds, but still the winds will be whipping up, and that's going to continue to make things a little bit tricky with these fires. There's still going to be favorable weather conditions for the fires to continue to spread. Guys, we'll head back to you.
I've got a question for you, Adam.
Yeah.
So because of that, in terms of the wind direction, say, let's talk about the Palisades fire, which is still the biggest fire.
Yep.
and the most destructive one, and seems to be burning the most tonight. What direction is that going to be going? If the winds are changing, is that going to be moving maybe towards Calabasas, or is that still going towards the ocean?
Yes, still towards the ocean. I mean, that's going to be the broad wind direction, and I say broad on purpose because there are these small-scale little microclimate situations happening where the winds kind of curl at times, and well, I'll talk more about that in a second, but let's talk about the broad wind direction. It's going to continue to be what it has been. I just want to get the map to kind of pause at a spot that I like here. But it's going to show here that, yes, the wind direction, like it's been all along here,
by Friday morning, it starts to lay down a lot. We get a lot calmer Friday with just a few isolated spots of wind. And I will tell you later in the day on Friday, we are expecting to see that wind calm down, but not fully. We still could see some spotty wind through the weekend even. And I hate to even forecast this far, and really I don't want to worry you because it's not going to be anything compared to the windstorm we saw over the last 24 to 48 hours. But by the time we head into the weekend, looks like Sunday, we could get a little bit of offshore wind pickup, and we could see it again next Tuesday. Again, that's a little ways out, and it's nothing compared to where we've been. But of course, with fires burning, any amount of wind could fuel these flames. So that's certainly what we're concerned about tonight. We're watching the newest fire that broke out in Ventura and Whitsett, making its way up Sunswept Avenue. And then about, I guess we're still guessing at this point. We'll get you the exact measurement, and I will let you know in just a moment. Maybe about a mile away, we're looking at another hot spot that we have seen airdropping helicopters at up Coldwater Canyon a little ways there. So again, wind is a concern. It continues to be a concern. We're still looking at 20-mile-per-hour winds in the foothills. Of course, as you get higher up, it does get a little windier. And as we continue on overnight, we still could see that wind through tomorrow morning and really tomorrow afternoon. We're not fully in the clear, and we could see another bout of wind come through tomorrow night.
Because, you know, the fires are getting
Friday,
close
and that's
to me
when the
there.
red flag warning.
And now up the street, there's another fire on Whitsett.
You know, there'd been some speculation that maybe an ember had flown from Runyon Canyon into this area, and Michael and I are looking at it and thinking that's a long ways to go, especially when the wind is not gusting as much as it was last night. But we now know that LA County says this is a 4-story home. This fire is not related at all to what was going on in the Sunset fire. So we just want clarification on this. You know, embers may be flying around this, but this fire started a whole different way.
Yeah, this, I don't think this came from
Doctor, are you still with us at all?
no wind, so hopefully they can contain this.
We were wondering as well. We heard this is close to Westlake, Harvard Westlake. Can you give us an idea of how far?
Harvard Westlake is on Coldwater near Ventura, so this is probably, like I said, 3 city blocks east of that, and maybe a little bit further up the hill, but not much. It's really closer to the boulevard than on the top of the hill.
We've been told that you got a call from your daughter reported the fire. How is she? How is the rest of your family?
They left and went over to my place. So now they're a little panicked because of all that's going on. And as I notice in the streets, I'm on that near Whitsett, people are grabbing their belongings and leaving, and other people are watering down the house as they find out about this fire.
Doctor, have you received any notices or anything like that for your family to be on alert because of the fires in the area?
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering because we're receiving a warning.
Completely different story,
that,
Chelsea.
I can certainly attest to everything that Adam was saying. I mean, this is a steady wind flow directly to the south. So much so, I want to show you, there's now a firefighting presence. They kind of just leapfrogged down to the south of where we're standing here at this church. And that just happened in the last 20 minutes or so. So they're obviously concerned about the embers flying in that direction. And it is just a powerful, forceful wind that's just been blowing south for a while now. And you can see this church just crumbling here. We've got this flashlight to show you. We couldn't see this before because there was a structure in front, but you can see what looks like a cathedral of some sort. Look, if we can pan to the right, you see these beautiful stone arches. This was a very large church. It's the Community United Methodist Church of the Pacific Palisades. And I mean, look at the destruction here. We just heard what sounded like a very large concrete wall collapsing. It sounded like a big boom. Didn't sound like an explosion like some of the gas canisters that we've been hearing explode for the last 24 hours. This was different. This was like a wall falling down. And then over here, we just saw the last beam, the last standing beam, that just collapsed a couple of minutes ago. So when we got here, this was, I mean, it looked like a structure. It looked like there was something here, and now it's just gone. This fire is just left to kind of just burn itself out. There's nothing left to do, especially with these winds just kicking it up. And I want to show you again, just kind of setting the scene for what we're talking about here. You look over here, we've got this sign, join us for the Christmas season. A couple of days ago, this was a place of worship. This was a place of joy. They were celebrating the holiday season here. And now there's absolutely nothing left. And we're just seeing scene after scene after scene like this here in the Pacific Palisades. We came into the Pacific Palisades from the east. So we were driving toward the west on Sunset Boulevard. And it is just...
They've all since moved out. They're safe. And again, keeping up to date on what's happening by watching what's happening on the local news.
You know what was great? He was able to really pinpoint the location for us. We were in a whole different direction, thinking it was closer to the Studio City side of Laurel Canyon, and somewhere it's between Laurel Canyon and Coldwater Canyon. I see Melissa McGee is standing by right now as we continue to look at this picture from News Chopper 4. Give us an idea of the winds out there.
Like he said, the wind is barely breezy. Did you hear him say that? And also the winds are fairly light. So we've got the winds coming in out of the north-northwest. Relative humidity, though, is dry. And he is correct in the sense that this fire is sandwiched in between Coldwater Canyon and Laurel Canyon, and it's south of the boulevard. Just to give people an idea of what's north of the boulevard, once you cross over Ventura, you're very close to Whitsett, which is where he was calling from. And also, if you continue to go further down Whitsett and then travel over to the west, you're close to the Sportsman Lodge area, where a lot of people are familiar with that. That's right off of Coldwater Canyon as well. So the winds are light, but it's dry, and it's moving into an area where there are a lot of homes. And like we've been seeing, it looks like it's going to be hard for evacuation in the sense that we're dealing with very narrow roads. So folks trying to get out as firefighters are trying to come up and battle the blaze there. And on top of that, you got hot spots that are moving in around that fire.
Melissa, Michael, I just found the information I was looking for. We got an alert from the LAFD regarding the fire burning near Laurel Canyon. And it says, and I'm quoting here, Laurel Canyon, Mulholland, Coldwater, Ventura Boulevard, those nearby need to be ready to evacuate, just in case there's a turn for the worse here. And
as we spoke to the doc not too long ago, he's within the vicinity, and he is heated again. This warning, he and his family are out, and they have moved to a safer place. And again, we'll just continue to see what happens as we continue to clock these fires all around Southern California. Let's check back in with News Chopper 4 and Julia Deng for a look at the progress being made, and still
Still a lot of fire out there, Julia.
Yeah, Colleen, you can see flames burning through the roof of this first structure that fell victim to this fire on Sunswept Drive. It collapsed on air, and now flames are just chewing through the roof. Firefighters have stationed themselves now on the adjacent property. You can see they're standing on the roof here and shooting water at these flames, but they still don't have this under control. And what's more, it looks like the adjacent structure is catching fire as well. Look at this. We were worried about the stairs that firefighters were going up to try and fight this more aggressively, but embers have jumped over to this neighboring home. We don't see any lights on. I don't think anybody is home. But for anybody who has not evacuated yet, right, we're talking about these narrow canyon roads, these narrow winding roads, and now to the north of Sunswept Drive, we have fire trucks lining these streets, protecting additional homes that could be threatened. So that's going to make it even harder for residents who are trying to get out. And then earlier we showed you another hot spot, which in size is comparable to what we see burning here. The difference is that other hot spot to my left isn't threatening any homes just yet. We don't even see firefighters over there as they zoom out. That's on the other hillside here. You might not be able to see it. But this firefight still very much underway, active, and we did get that same alert that Colleen just read live. That was as Dr. Ron was talking about being on alert and his daughter being in hysterics. They are warning people here about potential evacuations. So at this point, this is just an evacuation warning, but same thing we saw earlier with the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills. Moments after getting that first alert, my phone was going off in the helicopter.
Hoping things would calm down. They still can't go back to their homes. The evacuation order is still in effect. But they're hopeful. They're waiting it out. They're not gone back inside their homes. And actually, you know, a couple hours ago when we were outside that house where that palm tree was on fire right in front of the house, we spoke with the homeowner. And I just wanted to mention, too, because we ended up calling him, and he was extremely grateful for those good Samaritans who showed up and got the hose and sprayed down that tree, and said he wants to thank them personally as well because they essentially saved his house and what would have and could have been many more houses from that. So nobody's returning just yet. I think at an abundance of caution, especially from what we've seen, watching from home, seeing the smoke in the air, essentially from anywhere, whether it's in the Pacific Palisades, Altadena, and Pasadena. Once it got close to their home, people weren't messing around. They said, let me grab my stuff, let me get out of here. I don't care if it's coming down. I don't care if it's going west. I don't care if the wind's blowing the other way. I'm not messing with it. Smart move for all those folks, of course.
Yeah, if you're going to make a mistake with evacuation, you want to make the mistake of leaving too early rather than too late. Tim Caputo, live in the Hollywood Hills, keeping an eye on that fire that is still happening right now. Let's go back to Michelle Fisher, who has been covering the fire in the Palisades fire. She's been in Malibu for most of the day. Let's take a look at what Michelle is dealing with.
When we were here along Pacific Coast Highway last night, we saw some of the devastating images of beachfront properties here that had just completely burned down to the ground. That is not the case in this particular portion of Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, where we are right now. You can see the fire crews behind me here working to protect a couple of homes from burning down. This is the 22,200 block of Pacific Coast Highway as these fire crews work to get hot spots under control on two houses that are adjacent to a home that appears to have collapsed. So for this one home in the middle here, unfortunately, that looks like just a complete loss for this oceanfront property. But at least the properties that are adjacent to it, based on the efforts of these fire crews here and the work they're doing to protect these structures, it looks like maybe those will be damaged, but they are not a complete loss. Now, one of the things we've talked about that has been so helpful as resources are stretched incredibly thin is the mutual aid. So the fire trucks that I'm seeing here, there's about 5 or so in the area where we are right now with crews from Orange County. So they've come here to Los Angeles County to help in this firefight all hands on deck in terms of fire personnel. Also, Sheriff Robert Luna mentioning that mutual aid is not only with fire departments, but also with police as well, with other agencies coming in to help the LA County Sheriff's Department as they keep an eye for looters, as they go out in the community and help people that might be injured, and as they help with evacuation. So really all across Southern California right now, all hands on deck in terms of first responders to make sure homes, properties, and people are safe right now. That's the latest along Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. I'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. Let's go to meteorologist Dallas Raines. Dallas, you obviously talked about these winds for several days. A lot of people got in position, but again, we are seeing the devastation left behind as well.
Yes, it's really difficult. As you know, Mark, you and I talk about this after a newscast, how I see something coming weather-wise, and then there's really just nothing you can do other than be prepared, because if a fire is started, it's a really, really scary situation. We see what happens in Southern California when we have these intense, I mean, really intense Santa Ana wind events. Okay, so I've been monitoring the conditions tonight, and they are dropping as far as the wind velocities, but they're still out there. So therefore, the red flag warning will remain in effect. There's a quick shot of the house fire. Hasn't been very strong winds to that area at all, especially down at the surface. And winds up in the Hollywood Hills area with that fire, also not really strong, anywhere between 10, occasional 15, gusts to 25. But that is it. And there are times when you'll go through 10, 15 minutes of a complete lull in the winds, and that is typical once the red flag conditions and the Santa Ana wind conditions get in that pulse type of atmosphere where things are beginning to relax, the pressure gradients are relaxing, the cold air advection is relaxing, and so you just don't have those powerful winds like we had last night, thank goodness. Here's a shot, though, of the red flag warning. Now, if you live right along the coastline, even down in Orange County, you are not in the red flag warning, but it does remain all the way through Friday. And as we talk about that, even though wind velocities are decreasing, it's very dry. We already have existing fires, and therefore red flag conditions stay with us. Take a look quickly at some of the winds that we're looking at now, and they're quite light. They're a couple of 10, 15, gusts to 20, as you can see, but otherwise a very good night tonight across Southern California, and that is, of course, helping firefighters under so much duress with what we've been going through lately. Air quality, of course, is bad out there, especially from Pasadena in the northern portions of LA County and down into East LA. And the reason for that is those are really fine particulates that are in the atmosphere that fall out of the sky, and they're dangerous to breathe. Here's the center of the low pressure tonight. So it is moving away from us. It's going to be a big weather producer over in Texas. You will not be able to fly into Dallas-Fort Worth starting tomorrow due to
tonight. That's not the case. And like the gentleman we just interviewed, he said there in Studio City, it's barely breezy. But the problem is that it's so dry. It's really dry. And then you have all of that vegetation as that fire marches up the hill. It only helps to energize that fire and helps to move those flames along even faster than we would normally see.
Julia Dang live for us in News Chapter 4. Julia, is this yet another, is this the same property or a different property here?
We're still trying to figure out if this is two separate properties. That was the first question we had when we pulled up about 30 minutes ago. We do know this is a separate structure. It could be an ADU, could be a neighboring property, but there's something, as we come around in the helicopter, there's something out front that appears to be flaring up. I think it's some more of that dry brush Melissa was just talking about. Let me zoom out here and just give you a wider shot of the firefight still underway. This looks better. This looks more hopeful than what we were seeing earlier. I'm seeing far less in the way of flames. Smoke seems to be lightening up as well, but this whole canyon now lit up. Look at all the fire apparatus there. I know it's probably hard to distinguish between what are embers here, what are hot spots, and what are lights from homes. So I'm going to zoom in on where the hot spots still are, what's still burning here. It's these orange patches within the dry brush. So look at this. There are firefighters surrounding this area trying to get this under control. You can see, though, if you take a look at the trees, you can see the difference in movement between what we're showing you now in Studio City versus what we showed you earlier this evening in the Palisades, where winds were still whipping. We do not have that here, so that may end up just being the saving grace here.
You know, earlier, Julia, we asked you about the proximity to Laurel Canyon. Now that we know it's closer, we believe, according to Dr. Ron, to Coldwater Canyon, can you give us a quick shot of that?
I can. So Laurel Canyon is going to be just to the east of here, and we are northwest of Fryman Canyon. We've been calling this whole region the Canyon. This is northwest of Fryman Canyon proper. So I'm going to show you this whole area, this busy, tightly packed residential area now lit up with these emergency vehicles. We haven't seen a lot of people trying to get out, so it looks to me like residents may have evacuated before we even got on scene. But that evacuation alert, that warning did come through on everyone's cell phones earlier, letting them know about a potential evacuation order. The mandatory order has not come down just yet. And if firefighters here can get this under control, we may not see forced evacuations.
What is that dark area that we're seeing from the chopper there? Is that an area where power is out, or more of a brushy area? I'm not sure if you can hear me.
All right, so we appear to have lost Julia's audio here at this point, but again, the firefight continues here on Sunswept and Veneta, and you asked the question, is that that sort of dark spot in her shot?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder whether that is something that's related to a power outage, or is that just a patch of, you know, brush that perhaps is empty. Yeah, and a piece of property that's empty and again, just sits there in darkness.
You know what is amazing as we look at these pictures? We're looking at that picture, dead center in the screen there is a hot spot. And you've got to wonder, it looks like it's a curb. There's a lot of water around there. What in the world could be on fire there? And while the firefighter...
Yeah, you know, if we could, let's just take a little bit of a walk this way, because what we were seeing is we were seeing these firefighters go into some of these backyards, and we could see them actually looking at the brush. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of dark right now, but when one of the helicopter lights hits the hill just right, you'll see all the smoke that's rising up from that street next door where that house collapsed. And you can see them right now as they go into these yards to check out the properties, to try to survey how everything is going, but also to look at where they need to spray water, where do they see some dry vegetation that they need to douse, because you can see it's kind of difficult to walk around here because they have hoses lined up all over the place. So it's pretty incredible that the job that they're doing. Mark and Colleen, it's also pretty incredible how fast they got up here. These are very narrow roads, as you know. They are very highly elevated roads. It's not easy to move around. So to get this heavy equipment up here and to get up here so fast is pretty impressive. One thing that's also, I think, kind of important to note is one of the reasons why maybe there was able to be such a huge presence of firefighters here so quickly is there's not a lot of traffic on some of the major streets in LA right now. In fact, we were just south of the Sunset fire when we got dispatched here, and Sunset, hardly any traffic there. So they are able to move around the city pretty quick.
That's a relief, Kevin, because we were seeing absolute gridlock earlier. But again, Kevin, you may have saw some of the press conferences taking place today where the LA fire officials and the police department and the county sheriff's department saying, if you don't have a reason to be on the streets, stay inside, stay where you are, because they need these streets to be clear. So what a relief to hear you say that you did not see a lot of traffic, being that we know that traffic is a problem in Los Angeles.
And kind of a testament to the fact, you know, you talked about how it was easy for these big, heavy trucks.
Couple of days. We started this journey 11 o'clock yesterday. We've been on the air for 35 hours.
That was with the Palisades fire, and since then we have seen multiple fires throughout different parts of Southern California. This latest fire here in Studio City on Sunswept and Veneta, what we believe to be calling a 4-story structure smack there in the canyon, and again, part of what we looks to be a very dense neighborhood here on Sunswept and Veneta.
We have covered several fires today. You mentioned the Palisades fire, which is still going strong, no containment there. The fire in Altadena called the Eaton fire, 10,600 acres burned there. 5 people lost their lives there. No containment to the best of our knowledge on that one as well. But a success story this evening, and that would be the Sunset fire that broke out at about 5:30, I believe, this evening.
Helicopters above it, and they were able to squash
via News
most
Chopper
of the
4. And
yeah, we want to get straight to our Madison Kiwi live on the scene of this newest fire.
Madison, multiple homes burning near Ventura and Whitsett here in Studio City.
Yeah, so we've just pulled off and we're kind of walking up this hill. We weren't able to drive into this. This is a rather narrow road, one car at a time, and there's homes on either side here. And as we kind of wind our way up, you see on the road here, there's water coming down, likely from that firefight. And the video from this really paints the picture of what's happened here. We couldn't, like I said, drive up to this. So we're walking up the hill. We just got here and we're trying to get to a scene up top that people say has multiple engines. Some of the homeowners that live at the top of this hill are actually standing outside kind of watching as things go on. The video, though, from this, you can see first that fire start, as you said, from inside that house and then spread outside the home into that vegetation. And then, of course, that structure we know has collapsed. We got that on video. And again, we're walking up, I don't want to say a super steep hill, but steep enough where we can see out over the city lights. Getting in here was kind of challenging again, so that's why we're walking up to the top and kind of walking a little faster to see where we're at, but we're still going. And that video, like I said, really paints the picture of what happened here tonight. We're still learning more, and as you said, kind of the update on that fire is that it's mostly, if not all, out now, but you can kind of see the aftermath. I'll kind of stop here as you see this water coming down, and we'll keep walking up, send it back to you, and kind of check in here in a few minutes.
Survived.
Once we make it to the top to the scene.
The latest victim
right, Madison, we'll check back with you in just a little bit. And that is
a really scary sight. It's too dark to see now. I don't know if we can swing around, Sean, and see the other side, but there is nothing left on the other side of Bester. And that continues all the way down into the village proper and all the way down in basically every direction. This entire neighborhood has been decimated. There are very few homes left standing in about a mile circle here in the village, and it is just a nasty, gnarly scene, and unfortunate because there was a sign of hope that this random house, there are spotted random homes that did survive and did not burn, that this one still might go. You thought you made it 24 hours. It had not burned, it had not caught fire, and this home is still not out of the woods just yet. It's just incredible the amount of devastation and the bad luck that you could make it this far and still find yourself at risk because this fire just continues to cause so much heartache and so many problems, guys.
Yeah, it certainly does. Jory, thank you. Speaking of heartache, we know Josh Haskell. He grew up in this area. His parents were evacuated. He sort of started looking at sort of the devastating impact this Palisades fire has had on the community. Let's take a look at his report.
Best to just make sure you park the car somewhere else, put it in the garage, make sure the roads are left clear for fire crews and emergency vehicles.
Yeah, and I think we want to bring our Mike Rogers in here, who's really been tracking this. We were one of the first that spotted this, Mike, and it was really hard to make out if this was one home, two home. It looks like multiple homes that burned.
Mike, you're a fire spotter. That's what you are.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, this is the second time tonight where the chopper's been flying, and I look over at the monitor and say, "Hey, wait, what fire is that?" That's how we found out about the Runyon fire, because he spotted it even before the fire department got the call, and then that's how we saw this fire too. As I was having him go check out the Palisades fire from the north. So yeah, there is more than one home that is burning here. You see that on the right side of your screen, and then as the shot widens out, that is a second home. So I was able to look at some maps here. These are definitely two different addresses, two separate homes. Now, I don't know if the people in there know each other or not, but it doesn't appear that this is like a situation where it is you know, a back house or a guest house or anything like that. They appear to be two bona fide separate addresses and two bona fide separate homes that exist there. And you see on the left side of your screen, that's Madison Keevy's live shot as she walks up passing engine 90 there to deal with this. Now, we talked about the collapse of the home, and that was such a concern, right? Because right after that collapse, then we had a spot fire that broke out even on the other side of a hill, that they had to bring in a helicopter and do a couple water drops on that. So the situation is looking much, much better now. There was also a gas line that they were contending with for a little bit that we saw kind of spraying out of a bush. As Madison gets closer, you can see a bunch of people walking around there. And this is that video from earlier on the right side of your screen. That house just is fully involved. The fire department told us it was a 4-story home. And again, we do want to reiterate that unlike what we've been seeing in other parts of Southern California the last couple of days, we do believe that this fire started inside of the home and then spread outside of the home. Now, they did just officially call a knockdown. My colleague Matt on the digital desk letting me know that they called a knockdown and that there are no reported injuries, which is always, of course, in the Studio City fire. Yeah. So that's always really good news. And, you know, I was concerned because of the landscape and the topography of the hill right here, that when that home collapsed, I was very concerned that it was going to come down on top of some of those fire crews. And in fact, on the radio, I did hear them talking about how they wanted to move some of their apparatus and get out of the way there a little bit, because that's a towering home on a hillside. Wow. And it in fact did collapse. And again, on the left side of the screen, that's a separate home that also burned. There was a couple of real scary moments, you know, that we were watching in the last hour, where we saw it even jump to a backyard of a third home. And I was really worried that was going to spread as well. Right there's the video right there. You can see the home up there on the left where we thought it was going to spread to that home. Luckily, it just burned through some shrubs and bushes and was put out. So, you know, a 4-story, really nice home, totally gone tonight, totally collapsed. You have another very nice home right next to it that is obviously destroyed as well. But luckily, we were happy to hear no injuries.
Well, and thank goodness, right, Mike? You said the call came in at 8:34 tonight, right?
It was 8:52.
Okay, 8:52, so even less time. And by 10:08, they're saying, hey, it's a knockdown.
Yep.
So that's really good news.
And testament to the firefighters, because they are just stretched ridiculously thin. And they're still able to, you know, as bad as it is that we lost 2 homes here,
take a hold of and try to save, and those which, quite frankly, it was too late. So as we look around, it looks like a battleground here. You see an engine going by right there on one of the main streets. That's Altadena Drive. But I really find it difficult to put into words just how barren it is here and how lacking in hope it is to see scorched earth, scorched trees, something that used to be somebody's beautiful home containing all of their memories just destroyed right down to the dirt, down to the dust. And it really does hit you right in the heart to think about what this will mean to some family who will try to put their life back together once they're allowed back in to try to assess what the next steps are. Now, earlier this afternoon, I spoke to a woman. She had evacuated overnight. She was happy to come home and still find her home standing today, but she expressed a great deal of empathy for her neighbors who were not so fortunate. Let's listen.
One of my friends, it's a couple with 2 young daughters, and their house was one of the first ones to go over on the corner of Altadena in New York. And just, you know, they're camping out at a Hilton. They've lost everything, and it's just so traumatic especially for young people to go through something like that, the loss and the grieving. I feel it.
You know, oftentimes people talk about Southern California. It's a huge area. People don't know their neighbors. As somebody who grew up here, I can tell you it's not true, that I think people really have a sense of community and trying to help those around them. And we've certainly sensed that here. When we were speaking to that woman just a little while ago, several hours ago, she talked about the fact that all of the people who live in the area have been in communication. They've been trying to help each other, offer someone a place to stay if they still have a home intact, and really just a sense of community and wanting to be a good neighbor. And I know that we're here still in Altadena, but I must tell you, Alex and Marla, that I know that area of Studio City very well. In fact, I put a bid in on a house there on Sunswept, so I know that street. They have lovely views that look out. They're a little bit remote, and the streets are so narrow that sometimes you have to pull over so that the car can go around you to go the opposite direction. So for the fire department that would have been up in those hills trying to put out that fire, they would have had a very difficult job. And also the steep slope that sends right up the hillside that would have sent that fire burning at a rapid rate, again, would have been quite difficult. And then the area that they're talking about there over off of Coldwater Canyon is eventually where I did live for some 15 years. Same thing. A lot of people in the industry live up in those hills, and they move there for the view. But when you have a fire that's moving at that rapid rate, fueled by these Santa Ana winds, it is a recipe for disaster. But coming back here live to Altadena, again, you can see what people are having to contend with. And I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves tonight, why wasn't my house saved? When you see one structure completely intact and then another one like this that literally could be a movie set, just total and utter destruction. Laura Diaz sending it back live to the studio. Alex and Marla.
Yeah, it looks like Universal Studios or something. Laura, thank you for all that perspective. Really interesting context there. We appreciate it.
All right, moving on to the schools. Los Angeles Unified School District, as you know, is the largest in the state. The superintendent, there he is, Alberto Carvalho, earlier with officials. He announced that the district, all schools will be closed tomorrow, obviously because of the widespread fires, wind, and smoke. Students will continue to have access to academic resources online and will be able to get meal services at 8 sites between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Remote learning may continue on Friday. Officials say they will make that call tomorrow afternoon. It's also important to note, we also heard from Beverly Hills Unified. They are not in the evacuation zone, but nonetheless, they are closing their district schools tomorrow because a lot of their staff are in the impacted areas.
Yeah, maybe if we want to show that video we were just showing of President Biden is in town today with Kristen Crowley. Another note when it comes to schools, UCLA is going to be basically canceling all undergraduate classes for the next 2 days. Their graduate classes are going to go to remote learning, so they're basically trying to keep people off the campus of the University of California, Los Angeles. Chelsea Edwards is live for us tonight. She continues our coverage of the Palisades fire when we see a church that is not doing well.
And we were just talking about LAUSD, and you have board member Nick Malvoin with you.
That's correct. He just walked up here. So the church that we've been looking at all night is right across the street from an LAUSD elementary school. And I want to bring Nick in. Nick just happened to be walking by doing some assessments, and we just grabbed you really quickly. What have you observed? I mean, what is the latest here in the Palisades?
Yeah, well, things are moving quickly. When I was here with the superintendent doing site assessments earlier today, just this afternoon, the church behind us was still standing. Pali Elementary, which I'm right adjacent to now, is mostly gone. But in addition to, the announcement that the district made that schools are closed tomorrow, there have been so many rumors going out, and for my constituents, mostly in the Palisades, with Pali Elementary, with Marquez Elementary, and with Pali High, I wanted to be on the ground to make sure I was giving them up-to-date information. And, we are pleased to report that Pali High is about 75–80% intact. Those students are not in school this week. They don't go back until next week because of winter break, and obviously we'll have site assessments and structural engineers, but for the most part, unlike what people were hearing last night, which is that Pali High may be gone, Pali High is mostly there. Pali Elementary is mostly gone. Marquez Elementary is mostly gone. Canyon Charter Elementary, which I was just at, is mostly there. So I'm just trying to update constituents. There's already so many heartbreaking stories of families and constituents who have lost their homes. Schools are closed tomorrow, to give them some peace of mind one way or the other. Obviously, this is not the peace of mind I had hoped to say, which is that an elementary school has burned, but better to dispel rumors and make sure that they have accurate information. And we're here also just making sure that folks in the community are evacuated, thanking our first responders, and not only thinking about schools tomorrow and then Friday, but also thinking about a school like Pali Elementary, contingency plans for students.
Carry me as far as you can.
Prayers answered for that person, right? SkyCal also over the Palisades fire burning in Pacific Palisades and Malibu tonight. More homes and buildings destroyed as the devastating toll from this fire continues to mount. KCAL's Lauren Posen on the Palisades fire tonight.
And Lauren, can you tell our viewers where you are right now and what you are seeing?
Sure, Leslie. We're actually at the bottom of PCH at Sunset because there's no cell phone service for us higher elevation there. So we have video to show you when we went up there. But first I want to show you where we are here on the ground. Behind me here, you see these lights. And these are some of those water trucks we've been talking about. And in the past,
to check on their homes now, to check on their friends, on their family. And up here in News Chopper 4, I mentioned my pilot lives in this area with his family. He was doing that as well, you know, flying through here. He wanted to see if his neighbors, if his friends and family, if their homes are still standing. I cannot begin to imagine what that feels like, to not know, especially with these conditions changing so quickly and fires still spreading so quickly.
You know, Julia, we talk about sort of the enormous nature of these fires here in Southern California, and at the press conference here this afternoon, specifically on the Eaton fire, you had, you know, the mayor calling this a tremendous tragedy. 100,000 people under mandatory evacuations. And then you add to that 100,000 more have been warned to evacuate if deemed necessary. We look at what's going on here right now. How would you characterize the fire here right now and, again, its rate of spread?
I would say this is unpredictable. We just don't know what the night holds here in Altadena. I can show you what I'm seeing from up above, which is little spot fires everywhere. Everywhere I turn the camera, you see those orange lights. Those are homes. Those are businesses. Those are livelihoods up in flames. So even though the winds have died down here, they're not out of the danger zone yet. So people who are coming back, I sure hope they realize the risks they are taking. I mean, we're thousands of feet above this, but we're still in a cloud of smoke. I can taste it. We've got soot covering the camera operator in the back. This is unlike anything I've covered before. And Michael, something else that came up during that press conference that really struck me, and we've been hearing chatter about this all day, not just in Altadena, but in other communities affected by wildfires. There's looting going on. I mean, several arrests have already been made. There have been additional reports, and we heard the LA County District Attorney is gearing up to issue a press release and to take aggressive action on this. But you can't help but wonder when you see activity in a danger zone like this, is it neighborly activity or could it possibly be criminal activity?
Catherine Barger, LA County Supervisor, during that press conference, she said, and I'm quoting here, the full weight of the county will come down on those who choose to loot. Again, and we've heard of 3 arrests so far.
3 arrests, according to Sheriff Luna earlier today. Do we still have Julia with us?
Still here. Go ahead, Colleen.
So I'm kind of curious. We're looking at a lot of hot spots here. Is there a leading edge of this fire? Can you tell which direction it is burning right now?
I cannot tell. With every other fire, we have had an immediate answer to that question because you can clearly see in the helicopter picture which way the wind is blowing, where the smoke is moving, where flames are lapping. With the Palisades fire, you could see how the trees were blowing. You could see it expanding in every direction. Here, it's a different kind of fire behavior. We cannot tell where it is spreading. It's just like these little pockets of embers. We see things flaring up, dying down, and it is as far as you can see. Right now, we're still in Pasadena, shooting northeast, looking up at Altadena.
The latest update on evacuation orders right now. As well, you know, I can tell you that out of that press conference as well, we found out that additional teams are coming in. Yeah. Strike teams from Arizona were due into Pasadena, Altadena, that area later this evening. So they should be there at this point. And there's a mutual aid system. So we talk about firefighters coming from other counties and other zip codes in Southern California, but we're talking Oregon, Washington, Utah, Arizona, Nevada. All of those states are sending teams, whether they're strike teams or engines. Well, we don't know at this point, but they're all coming in because everybody looks at this and sees the magnitude of what we've been dealing with in Southern California. Yeah, and you speak of the magnitude here. There's also been, sadly, a death toll involved with the Eaton fire. 5 fatalities thus far. 200 to 500 structures damaged or completely lost. But the good thing about this, if there is, and that was water drops began just after 10 o'clock this morning. And that has been the saving grace, the sort of the decrease in winds and wind gusts. So again, firefighters able to make, hopefully, some progress on the Eaton fire. NBC4's Tracy Leong is live on the ground in Altadena. Tracy, our coverage of the Eaton fire continues.
Yeah, Michael and Colleen, and to your point, we have seen a huge difference compared to when Sean Browning and I were out here last night. We've seen those water drops from the helicopters, and just driving around this area. We are on West Palm near Lincoln in the North Arroyo neighborhood. We have seen a lot of resources. We have seen crews on a lot of these different streets that we are driving through, very different from what we saw yesterday. If you remember, I was telling you I didn't see any crews for sometimes blocks, and we would drive and just see homes burning down. But now that those winds have died down compared to what we saw yesterday, we're getting a better look at just the damage left behind. This home is an example. You could see the garage. There's still a fire smoldering inside. It's still smoking. The entire home behind it completely destroyed. The glass blown out. The walls just melted. And this car right here, this is an example of what we are seeing on almost every single block. We are driving down blocks, Sean and I, and we are just shocked to see that there are no homes standing. Perhaps one, maybe two every couple of blocks, but hundreds of homes. And when this is all done, we can understand that that number is definitely going to go up. And you see these officers that are driving through the area. They are working to protect these homes. People have evacuated, and the homes that are destroyed, well, there's no one protecting them. So we see a lot of the officers driving through the neighborhood, making sure there are not looters, making sure there are not people trying to come in and take advantage of a vulnerable situation. But you can also tell by this shot here at how dark it is. The power is still out to this area. The street lights are out, and we've also seen a lot of downed power lines. So when Sean and I were driving through, we had to be very careful. A lot of these roads were closed. Even though the power lines have been de-energized, you still want to be very careful. The winds snapped those lines. They snapped those trees, pushed a lot of those through the area. And we also saw a lot of debris through here. We have some video that we want to show you from earlier to show you how that fire is far from over. This is video from Lake Avenue. A lot of businesses, 40 businesses possibly. I know as Sean and I were driving up Lake Avenue, we saw grocery stores destroyed. This is the Bank of America. As we arrived around 5:30, you just saw flames shooting from the roof. You saw firefighters using hoses at the front entrance. And then you also saw people like this that were trying to water homes next door. They were trying to water some of the hot spots to save what was left, to keep these homes that had not burned down safe. That is something we are seeing tonight, that people, even though they have been ordered to evacuate, Michael and Colleen, they're coming back and they are trying to save what is still standing, because this fire, as far as we know, there is 0% containment. And while we don't see any active flames and the winds have really died down compared to what we saw last night, it does not take a lot to move the embers from the fires that are still burning. We do see a lot of little fires, but that's gas lines that are up in most of these homes. The gas has not been turned off. So that is the glow that we are seeing as we drive through the neighborhoods. But that's the very latest, reporting live in Altadena. Back to you in the studio.
Are you also seeing a police presence out there? We were talking about the arrest of 3 looters earlier. Earlier, when I was driving in an area, I saw black and whites, officers sort of patrolling out there. What are you seeing? Any of that?
Yeah, just as you mentioned that, Colleen, another officer drove by us. We are seeing that. We see it on a lot of blocks as we drive through. We're actually seeing more officers than fire trucks, which is very good news because these areas, no one is here. Most people have been ordered to evacuate, and if the homes are burned down, there's no one protecting these properties. So that's the good news out here, Colleen. We are seeing a heavy law enforcement presence.
And again, it's worth mentioning here that the Sunset Fire is in mop-up mode, and Robert Kovacic tells us that the LAPD will be out in Upper Nichols Canyon checking IDs and trying to keep looters out of that particular area as well. So,
Speaking of Robert.
Yeah, well, it's like magic. Robert Kovacic live for us there in Studio City, just off of Ventura Boulevard.
Yeah, Michael, Colleen, unfortunately, these fires are starting to appear a bit like magic, unwanted magic. And we are about 2 miles away from where we last saw you with the Sunset Fire. This is another fire, very difficult to access, which is one of the reasons that we are down below. You can see the water that is flowing here, but the LAFD explained to us that they cannot allow our vans and our trucks to come up there because they're having trouble just getting a hook and ladder up there. As you can see, it really is a very narrow street, and then once you get up Veneta, you got to get up to Sunswept, and again, it just continues to be narrow. I did hoof it up there, and I can tell you that they tell me that there are 4 houses right now that they believe that are completely gone, 2 more being threatened, and also an area behind it where there is a lot of brush. And again, it's sort of the same concern you have with the Sunset Fire because it burns through Runyon, and that is fuel. So what you don't want now is for the winds to pick up, for the winds to have those embers spread. We have no reason to believe that the embers from the Sunset Fire caused this fire. This will be under investigation. Is it possible? Sure. Anything is possible. It's really not that far away. But we are looking at right now a very dangerous set of circumstances here in Studio City, in the hills above Studio City. And to help me explain why it is so dangerous is a longtime resident, Michael Schul. Come on in there, Michael. Thank you. It's good to see you, and thank you for sticking around for us. Michael, like so many of us tonight, has received an evacuation order.
No.
Not yet.
No, we received an order to stand by for possible evacuation.
And are you doing just that?
Yeah, we got the cat box ready to grab if we need to, but we live further down the hill, so we feel fairly confident. I mean, we're like right at the bottom of the hill. The fire is right at the top of the hill, and it doesn't seem to be growing. So at the moment, we feel okay, but we're just on alert.
Michael, one of the things that our viewers may not understand is that when you live in these hills, you receive a notice from the LAFD every year that you need to clear your brush. Usually it's a May 1st deadline that you get where you have to start clearing it. And if you don't, you can be fined. Do you and your neighbors follow that brush clearance abatement order?
As far as I know, I see people having clearance all the time. So, I mean, I can't speak for like every house on the hill. And the only thing is I think there's a lot of open space that might be owned by the city or the government. I'm not exactly sure, but there's a lot of open hill, just like in Laurel Canyon and everywhere.
Well, you know, in these areas, they cherish their open space. We vote for this open space. We try to keep this open space. But of course, this can also be very dangerous. Well, it's great to have that, especially for our wildlife, but you never know what's going to happen because when we have the rain that we had last year, and now we have these fires, there's fuel to burn. Tell me about how you learned about this fire. You and I were talking about that. You thought, okay, we're out of the woods here as far as this wind event is.
I've had friends and relatives call me all day, and I'm like, oh, we're fine. We're far away from the fire. And then I heard on the news that it was like hitting Laurel Canyon. My partner called me. I came home, and it still seemed okay, and then all of a sudden I heard 6 fire trucks go up the hill. I heard 1 fire truck go up the hill. I looked out the window, it's another one. I'm like, oh, shit.
Is it this immediate concern for you, excuse your language, is this immediate concern for you that when you see the wind that's the big fear?
Yeah, I mean, I've never experienced a fire from being spread through wind before, but I know it happens. And so there was some concern. I see a lot of water coming down the hill, and it seems like they dropped a lot of water, and it feels damp outside, so I'm feeling like we might not have that particular problem at this moment, but I'm just guessing.
And that does appear to be the case. Michael Schul, thank you very much, and please stay safe. Get that cat box ready and go if you need to go.
Thank you.
I know you will. the beauty here is, and the difference here is, if you can remember 24 hours ago, and though we were in the Palisades, no matter where you would have been standing here in the Los Angeles area, the wind is not a factor right now. And that is, as the LAFD explained to me when we left the Sunset Fire, we are in mop-up mode. We are looking for spot fires because the wind can be erratic. So the LAFD explained they're just going to be traversing the hills and looking and sort of searching for an ember to fall for a spot fire so they can jump on it. But because we don't have wind, this is allowing them, as you see and as you hear, them to try and get the upper hand on this fire, to put this out through the air, and as well as you can see with the water flowing down here on Veneta, getting this fire from the ground as well. So they're able to do that. Unfortunately, it looks like another 4 homes have been lost. 2 more are in jeopardy, and the brush behind it. But the one thing that we have with this firefight, which is giving us a chance here, a real fighting chance to make room and to get headway, is that we don't have the wind fighting against us.
That is very good news for us. Robert Kovacic reporting live from Studio City. I believe this is the 3rd fire that Robert has covered just today. Robert, thank you. Yeoman's job out there. As you can tell, we are committed to staying with you on this, committed to staying on the air 24/7 to bring you the very latest on these devastating wildfires. And to help with that, we've brought in reporters from our NBC and Telemundo stations all across the country.
Valena Jones from our Bay Area sister station covering the Palisades fire joins us live at PCH and Sunset.
Well, Michael and Colleen, we're here on PCH and Sunset where it's eerily quiet, but it's because that there's no service.
Because these firefighters here are telling me they still are seeing some hot spots on this one home right here. Again, this is the Studio City fire. Just to give you a sense of exactly where we are right at the intersection of Sunswept Drive and Veneta Place. And when we arrived here, we're starting to actually see that water drop right now. We did see a firefighter on the roof of this one home as they continued to take a look at it, because again, for the past 20 or so minutes since we've been here, we've seen at times some glowing from inside that home, or a big kind of hot spot right there on the roof. So right now you can see they are just dousing this home with water. I mean, they've just been spraying it now consistently for a good few minutes. So much water is now being poured at this home, and not just on this home, but all the other surrounding homes to protect them. You can see these rivers of water coming down from the hills. When we joined you live last time, we were actually on the opposite end of this home. We were actually kind of above it, and we saw firefighters up there spraying the vegetation of the neighboring homes to protect them. And you got to give these firefighters credit. They got here so fast, and they were able to get these fires of these multiple homes so fast. Now, unfortunately, one home here on Sunswept Drive did collapse, but you got to say we're pretty lucky that this fire did not spread much more. Winds are very calm, and the firefighters here, Mark, tell me they think they can wrap this up soon, because, I mean, just look at the amount of water they're pouring on this home right now. Any flame left inside of that home doesn't really have a chance, as you just look at all this water now gushing through this neighborhood, Mark.
Kevin, it's very great to see all that water coming out. Let's hope that none of these embers have a chance, but they are certainly getting a handle on that fire. Great reporting again. That was Kevin Ozebek from our sister station, KTRK, reporting for us, helping us out with our live wall-to-wall coverage of the wildfires that have been sweeping through Southern California. Also, Danny Romero, you are standing by. We are going to go talking to you, because I know, again, I live in the South Bay. We weren't really affected by any sort of fires, but boy, you going out this morning at 9:15 this morning, you could smell it. You saw the ash. You saw it build up on your cars, on your sidewalks, and you just had that ominous look and smell of smoke.
Yeah, and just so widespread. And again, that smoke, always another part of our weather picture in Southern California, that smoke, the ash, all that, the air quality gets really impacted by this. And especially, as you might imagine, in those fire zones, especially, we'll see how that is. And we can see a great shot here, how the fire zone, a good tomato are the greens and yellows, but those oranges and reds, that's your more unhealthful air for sensitive groups and also for just about everybody in these areas. So we'll see that as it shows up on the map. Reason now it's still in effect. Winds have died down, so actually in that regard, winds dying down doesn't get to disperse that smoke, so it kind of settles into the areas where these fires are. Hence, we're seeing these dangerous conditions still in play. Now, the winds are still there, as Dallas will show you here in a second, and has been showing you all night. So they're still in play, not quite as intense, but those particulates there, the smoke, the ash, are still in those spots, especially. So in those areas where you see the red, you see the orange, those are your unhelpful for sensitive groups. Unhelpful for everybody is the red. So just stay indoors as best you can, away from all that particulate matter. Have masks handy, just the same. And the areas, that purple there, that's very unhelpful air. That's just dangerous all around. So certainly in those spots, if you're still in those areas, stay indoors if you can. If you've not been evacuated, stay indoors there. And if you are in that area, in some evacuation center, indoors, masks possible. It is just dangerous, dangerous air quality as well. And we're watching again areas here showing up in the red. That too indicates the unhelpful air for everybody in that area. So the areas in the green and the yellow, not so much, but those areas in that red, the orange, and we just showed you the very intense purple area, that's unhelpful air, very unhelpful air. So just please be careful there. And this is still in effect now, probably through the nighttime hours. Well, of course, we'll track it for you through overnight and into tomorrow morning as well. All right, Colleen, Mark, yours.
Okay. Danny Romero, thank you. And as we look at that big red blotch with the purple dot in there behind you, that is basically where the Eaton fire is, and where a lot of that pollution is being generated. Brianna Willis is from
Beverly Hills coming into the Westwood area. So that's the kind of area that we're looking. They're looking up to the northwest portion of the fire. So that's going to be up near the Topanga State Park area, Topanga Canyon, Mandeville Canyon, up in that area where the chopper is looking right now. And even at night, you guys, you can still see the really remarkable smoke plume that it is putting up there on the left-hand side of your screen, and just how intense the flames really are still burning. The only silver lining in all of this right now, which is the fact that the fire is burning more into the mountainous area, and unfortunately, it just devastated the community of the Pacific Palisades. I mean, just getting an eye today, looking at the aerial video of some of these neighborhoods, and street after street after street after street destroyed, is just really remarkable. So, you know, I've gotten a message from a couple of people about the fire activity picking up on the north side of this, from visible from Calabasas. So we're going to put a second chopper up, and we're going to go look at it from that side and get an eye on it from that. But we wanted to also look at it here from this side of the area, the southeast side rather, of the fire perimeter here. And that is what you're looking at here from the helicopter as they come in and cross the 405 freeway right now. So still a lot of very significant fire activity. Again, differences from last night to tonight. There are water dropping helicopters up right now. So they're more focused on you guys, actually, even over near Pepperdine is where they're pulling water out of right now. So it's crazy how far kind of to the northwest this fire has really moved. And what's also interesting is, you know, Orange County Fire, we just did a big kind of called a song and dance, but show and tell basically of their new Firehawks that they got down there, and they've lent them to us. So those Firehawks from Orange County Fire are up here tonight. At least one of them is. There's a Cal Fire helicopter up there as well. There's the Chinooks that are flying tonight, which is so critically important to be able to do this. It's something that we just didn't have last night, and we saw the destructive path that it took when we couldn't have those assets. So I'm kind of monitoring where they're focusing on, and right now it looks like they are continuously dropping water, basically like on Piuma Road. There's a helispot up there as well where they're getting some water out. There's some pockets worth of homes up there. The Montanito, the Cold Canyon area is where those helicopters are kind of focusing right now. So, but you can see as they zoom in, really kind of the extensiveness of the fire that is still burning. 15,832 acres have burned, and they're putting up the map tracker there. You can see where we're looking at Mulholland Drive there to the north, Topanga Canyon there on the left, Sullivan Fire Road, Valley Circle is up there way to the north, and we'll do the overlay here so you can see it is deep in the canyons there, right? And it's good because it's away from homes, but it makes it challenging for them to be able to deal with that on the ground. Those are the areas where they will be exclusively having to fight that fire from the air. And I can tell you, this is the very eastern edge of the Palisades fire, and there is still a lot of fire activity over on the western edge. And, you know, it almost makes me a little bit concerned because in this area, we're not seeing any water dropping helicopters, which means they're okay with letting this burn. There is another area of this fire that they are more concerned about right now, and that is where they have dedicated the 3 helicopters to doing. We also have an Intel helicopter, the fixed wing Intel 2-4 Beechcraft, which is going to do the mapping of it for us. So hopefully we'll get an updated acreage tonight if they'll be able to do that. But that's what they're doing right now. And the chopper's looking at, we're going to put the other helicopter up and look at it from the north side, because I've gotten a couple messages now from people who are seeing it in the Calabasas area, you guys.
And let's hope by this time tomorrow, Mike, we're in even better shape, right, when it comes to these fires, and we see a lot of more of these fires squashed
And
down.
back at it tomorrow, we can get some fixed wings in here, some retardant droppings, some, hopefully.
Get ahead of it.
Right. Day 3 of fighting it that way, hopefully we'll be able to make some significant progress.
But it gives you an idea. We say a 50.
No building. It's just all this crumpled debris. That's like where moon shadows should have been. It's the same thing, where you could not recognize where it once was.
Yeah.
So it's for people who know what it looks like, supposed to look like on PCH.
I had a very similar experience looking at your video, Susan. I had a friend that had a house right there who messaged me and saw from your video confirmation that their spot is no longer there. And I remember hanging out at that spot, and it was one of my favorite places, and so beautiful, and that community is so tight-knit, and it's just heartbreaking to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our apologies to your friend and to my friend, and we will continue on with our coverage and give you a moment to catch your breath. But, Susan, thank you for that reporting.
It really is such an emotional time for so many. Let's talk about some of the evacuation centers as it relates to the Palisades fire. You can go to the Westwood Recreation Center. This is on the 1300 block of South Sepulveda Boulevard. That's right between Wilshire and Ohio. Another evacuation center is open at the Dream Center in Los Angeles. That's in Hollywood. And there are 2 evacuation centers for livestock and larger animals. You can go to Pierce College in Woodland Hills, or the Los Angeles Equestrian Center in Burbank. That's on Riverside.
Closed tomorrow. And in this fire here, the Palisades fire one, we had 2 schools destroyed, and then parts of Palisades High School also destroyed. Just a portion of it, but still some destruction to the high school.
Yep. And this bit of information just coming into our newsroom. I know a lot of people are still without power in some areas, and that may affect the Wi-Fi getting connected to the internet. Spectrum, we are told, has opened more than 35,000 Spectrum Wi-Fi access points. And this is to everyone in the impacted areas, and this is at no cost to you whatsoever. That's according to a company representative. These Wi-Fi access points are typically found in public parks, marinas, and city streets and other public areas. If you'd like to know where there is one close to you, just head over to spectrum.net/support, and you'll be able to find out some more information there. But they're doing their part as well to keep you connected to family and friends, and of course, to important information about this fire.
But before we move on, I think Mike has something at the desk.
I just wanted to remind our viewers, too, because this got talked about during the press conference. There's that boil water order that is in place.
A lot of people are asking me about, should I boil water, Mike? What is it?
Because here's the thing. LADWP, they sent a message very wide. I know a lot of people that don't live anywhere near the fire, but are LADWP customers that got the alert. And it is not for everyone. It is very specifically for the zip code in the Pacific Palisades. So, I had looked this up when they gave it out. It's basically all of the areas that is the area that is under a mandatory evacuation in the Pacific Palisades. So Pacific Palisades itself, the summit where the Getty Villa is, all of those areas, those are under the boil water order, and they're asking you to do that until further notice.
There you go. That's good information to remind people. Mike, thank you.
All right, 2 new fires broke out tonight. This one, the Sunset Fire, ignited in Runyon Canyon in the Hollywood Hills. A massive and aggressive aerial firefight attack followed, helping to get this fire under control.
Our Tom Waite was there for that firefight time. Have they lifted those evacuation orders just yet?
So I just spoke with a fire official here on the scene, and his understanding is no. The fire evacuation order has not been lifted yet, but he did tell me that they have a pretty good feeling they're getting a good handle on this fire, but there is a threat that remains. If you look behind me, it's pretty dark, and that's a good thing. That is Runyon Canyon behind me, and pretty much the only thing you can really see right now is a fire engine up there on one of the trails, one of the roads there, the service roads by the trails, and that's pretty much it. And there's hot spots here and there, kind of at the top I can can see one of the trails above there on the ridge. It does look like there's some smoldering going on there. But, you know, earlier it was just nightmarish looking and just scared so many people in this area when they had that evacuation order put in place. It was because it really was a situation that looked like it could spin out of control, and the fire was raging on the trail. Now, you have to remember, as we've been talking about, there's so much dry brush here, bone dry, just hasn't had any rain in so long. Back in May, I think, was the last time we had significant rainfall. And so you just have this brush as fuel, easy fuel for the fire, just tearing up the hillsides, churning through. And it just looked very, very ominous for some time. And, you know, firefighters just attacked this thing. They got in here, multiple engines up to the entrance where we are at Fuller, just north of Franklin, and just, you know, they got in here and completely attacked this fire. They had a ton of hoses out here blasting and dousing, drenching trees, and also carving fire lines, hand crews out here, just doing everything they could to get a handle on this. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, it feels like things are a lot calmer. And I have talked to some people that have returned, even though the official word has not gone out to, oh, they're doing a water drop right now. So yeah, there's a big water drop right now. So they have that ability to do that tonight, which is wonderful. Last night they could not do that, obviously because of the horrible wind situation we had going. So in the Palisades, they just didn't have the ability to use either choppers or fixed-wing aircrafts to dump any kind of water on those raging flames. Tonight, right now, I'm looking at the palm trees. They are not even moving. It is a welcomed, beautiful sight to see, just to see things kind of just hanging still in the air. Last night was just an unrelenting nightmare of gusting winds, hurricane-force winds at times, it felt like. And just tonight, that's not the case. So thank goodness for our incredible firefighters here who just, you know, like a SWAT team, swarmed this place and doused those flames and, you know, really saved so much. If you consider how many of these wood frame buildings in Hollywood that could have been vulnerable to the fire, it's really terrifying to think about. And luckily, at least for right now, it looks like that threat may be over. But of course, that's not the official word. I'm just telling you what I see, which is it looks very positive at this point. But of course, we'll keep you updated with more information from firefighters. But I did just speak with a firefighter here on the scene, one of the officials here, who said they feel pretty good about things the way they are right now. Back to you.
It's good to share with our viewers. Thank you so much, Tom.
We want to get to some video that we showed you just a few moments ago.
Having trouble getting water to this area. It's been a constant complaint here over the day, and it is a problem here too. But the water tender is just enough to get them enough water to get these hot spots out. And here's one that they came up here for. So this is a house that burned earlier, but it's the house behind it actually that was not burned that they're trying to preserve tonight. This was spotted by mission number 1 for firefighters, which is tactical patrol. And what they're doing is they're going in and out of the Altadena neighborhoods and looking for houses that have not burned but may have spot fires or embers or something that could start, and they're just making sure that that doesn't happen. So instead of fighting the fire necessarily, they're out there and they're kind of doing a surround and drown with the preserved homes, and that's the case right here. So up here in the neighborhoods, there is no electricity, as you know, and a lot of power lines down. So it is a very great concern, not only for firefighters that are working, but for people that are coming back to the neighborhoods and trying to snap pictures or maybe retrieve something that they might have left behind. You're dodging power lines that are on the ground and power and utility poles that are burnt, tilted. So it's still a very dangerous area, even without fire necessarily spreading to other homes. But you still have a lot of dangers. This was obviously a very destructive fire, and that's evident here. Obviously, in Altadena, there are several hundred homes destroyed, several cars. You just have to drive down this road on Harriet Street, and you'll see all the abandoned cars that were burned up, and obviously all the homes that have been leveled as well. So tonight, the job really, because we don't have high winds, it's more like a breeze, if that, which is certainly stops the rapid rate of spread. And firefighters are certainly happy with that, but still there's the concern of the dangers that and the destruction that the fire caused, the concern for firefighters and concern for anyone who might come up here as well. Reporting live, I'm Dave Summers, NBC4.
Dave, I assume with all the dangers that you just described there with power lines and things like that, residents are not being allowed back in to check to see if their homes made it through this fire?
Well, we're seeing a lot of people coming by homes and taking photographs, individual photographs, and some of them are people who are friends of people who live there. Some of them are the residents that live there. Everybody we talk to seems to be telling us that they're either lost a home or they know someone who lost a home, and they're just either getting photographs or just trying to help. There's a lot of civilian traffic up here, which really kind of surprises me, because I can tell you, working this neighborhood and other neighborhoods in Altadena today, we have run into so many power poles that are almost to the ground and wires onto the ground. Of course, they're not energized. They shut all of that off, but it still, as we've been talking about, it poses a danger.
Potential risk at the very least. All right, so Dave Summers there live for us in Altadena. NBC4's Darcia Phillips has been in the Pacific Palisades covering the fires there. She's live now along Antioch and Swarthmore Avenue. Darcia.
Yeah, Michael, we're in the heart of Palisades Village, where a lot of businesses have burned. You're looking at one just behind me. This was the Starbucks, also an Italian restaurant just behind it. And you can see, look how fast and how hot this fire burned, completely eradicating this building. It's a stone building, but everything inside is charred. And this is what we are seeing all across the area here in the Palisades. You know, the evacuation orders, of course, are still in effect. When people come back, they are not going to recognize this area. Now we're going to pan over. I'm going to move the light. You can see another corner there. That used to be a building as well, with a yogurt shop and other businesses. That is also gone. This is the heart of Palisades, and it is really, really destroyed by this fire.
Thank you very much.
Now,
well,
I do
we know
want to show
Michelle
you, if you
Fisher,
can come back this way, Jeremy, my photographer, you can see the ash that's kind of blowing in the light here. We are still feeling winds here in the Palisades, and right now we are stuck in this area because of signal. There's not a lot of cell phone signal here. But we were driving all around this area earlier today, and there are still homes that are on fire, and there are still active fire in the hillsides. We actually met up with some residents. Take a look at this video. They were up in their home closer to the Highlands, and they were putting out a spot fire on their deck. They were able to hike up to their home and put out this fire.
Collapsed.
And
so
this
for
young
this
man
one
that I
home in the
spoke
middle
to,
here, unfortunately, that looks like just a complete loss for this oceanfront property. But at least the properties that are adjacent to it, based on the efforts of these fire crews here and the work they're doing to protect these structures, it looks like maybe those will be damaged, but they are not a complete loss. Now, one of the things we've talked about that has been so helpful as resources are stretched incredibly thin is the mutual aid. So the fire trucks that I'm seeing here, there's about 5 or so in the area where we are right now, with crews from Orange County. So they've come here to Los Angeles County to help in this firefight. All hands on deck in terms of fire personnel. Also, Sheriff Robert Luna mentioning that mutual aid is not only with fire departments, but also with police as well, with other agencies coming in to help the LA County Sheriff's Department as they keep an eye for looters, as they go out in the community and help people that might be injured, and as they help with evacuation. So really all across Southern California right now, all hands on deck in terms of first responders to make sure homes, properties, and people are safe right now. That's the latest along Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. I'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, Michelle Fisher's live report there. It's worth noting that we have a mutual aid coming in from Oregon, Washington, Utah, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. All of our neighboring states are sending in firefighters and equipment to help in this process, as well as neighboring counties.
Sir,
Describe what happened.
So at approximately 9:45 this evening, the Los Angeles Fire Department responded to the 4100 block of Veneta. First companies on scene found a 4-story ascending hillside home fully involved, exposing one structure to one side and ember casting into the neighborhood above into the canyon behind the structure.
So the structure behind, how much damage are we talking?
At this time, it appears to be a total loss. It's unsafe for us to go inside, so we're doing final extinguishment from the outside.
Now, even though it has been deemed a knockdown, I saw a lot of firefighters still working this house. Describe what happens.
So just due to the construction features and the way the house kind of pancaked in on itself, there's lots of areas of the home that we're unable to get direct access to get final extinguishment. So we're going to be here throughout the night with a reduced profile so we don't impact the community, but our goal is to eventually get a complete knockdown without letting it pick up enough steam where it starts ember casting into the canyon, because we still have the fire weather, which gives it a double hazard of not only the structure, but it getting into the brush as well.
Now, I understand some of the residents
from the Chinooks and from Colson Aviation that is up there doing that right now. So next time I see you, I'll show you that video as well, guys.
All right, we'll chat with you very soon. Thanks so much, Mike. Well, there are so many stories of loss in these fires. Earlier today, our Amanda Starantino spoke with a 91-year-old man.
A warning area, that's going to be lifted in this particular area because of this incident. So as soon as we're able to get our heavy apparatus out of this neighborhood, we'll start opening it up to the residents so they can start coming back, rehousing.
Well, that was really quick work by LA City firefighters. Wonderful job. I have to tell you, I mean, you guys have been dealing with so much in the last 2 days here. Describe some of the challenges you've had, especially with Palisades.
So, as you know, in Los Angeles, we typically, we pretty much have an extended season for brush fires. This particular wind event that we had was very extreme, and you couple it with some of the extremely dry fuels that we have in the Southland, and it was just a recipe for a disaster. So the last few days, as you've seen with the Palisade and many of the other fires that we've had going on, have been exceptionally challenging for the fire service. Luckily, we've had our local partner agencies here to help us, and we're making progress, but we still got a lot of work ahead of us.
You have obviously dealt with fire behavior your entire career. Have you seen anything like this before?
So we're always susceptible to some pretty extreme behavior, but some of the fire behavior that we saw during this weather event was particularly extreme. So no, this was fairly unique. You're only going to see weather this extreme a few times in your career, probably.
Now, I spoke with some LA City firefighters who say that resources are thin. There were some budget cuts, and that may have played something in the response time. Could you shed light on that?
Well, what I can tell you is just with the added call load that we have, our resources are definitely stretched thin right now. We have a ton of calls right now, so our resources are responding to every call that we get dispatched to, and we're going to continue to do so.
Well, in Altadena, which is Pasadena Fire, it's a different agency, there were 5 people who lost their lives, and mainly because there were evacuation orders and some people don't want to leave. Could you speak to our viewers in terms of how important it is to follow those orders?
Yeah, absolutely. The warnings, the evacuation orders that we put out, they're there for a reason, right? These fires are extremely dangerous. They move exceptionally fast, and they pose a significant danger, not only to the residents, but to the firefighters. The less that we have to deal with, the more we can focus on protecting homes and property, but obviously life safety is going to be our priority. And if that's what we have to focus on, we have to make tough decisions when we have these wind events.
We came from the Hollywood Hills. That was also really fast progress. Great work by LA City Fire. Now here in Studio City, you guys got that out. Palisades, it's still a problem. Can you give us an insight as to how much more you guys have? What's the containment?
Off the top of my head, we have at least, I believe, 3 non-completely extinguished brush fires at this moment. I can't really speak to any of the numbers right now, but we do have resources at all of them right now, and we're making steady progress.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you guys are very busy. Marla, Alex, I'm going to let him go unless you have a quick question for him.
I just quickly want to know, was anyone hurt in that total loss?
Were there any injuries? in the total loss?
At this incident, there's been no reported firefighter injuries, and we made contact with the resident of the affected address, and that person told us that everybody was out and accounted for. So as far as we know, no injuries, civilian or sworn.
Great. Thank you so much for all you do, all your hard work. It's very much appreciated by us and, of course, all of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gina.
I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
It is now top of the hour. This is when we usually say good night, L.A., but our special coverage here on Fox 11 starts right now.
House after house for block after block destroyed.
Since 6:30
part of it collapsed. Again, this was roughly a 90-minute firefight. 50 firefighters swarmed this neighborhood here in Studio City, and they did manage to get this fire under control pretty quick. But take a listen to one couple that live in this neighborhood. They started to grow concerned after they started to hear loud bangs, loud explosions. Take a listen.
Well, we were sitting in our house watching television, and
heard what seemed to be gunshots. Of course, we were watching the news and all the fires. Again, heard what seemed to be gunshots and looked outside, saw our next door neighbor's fire coming out of their home. Took a second and went back out again. He went to grab some things, and I said, our house is on fire. And
so you came in and said, the house is on fire, the house is on fire.
And which house is yours?
My house is the second house. The first house is the one right there, and the second house is the one that is burning right next to that one.
Literally grabbed our phones, a computer, and our dogs, and ran out.
Just so terrifying to think of having to grab your animal, grab your computer, whatever you can, and just have to leave your home. Joining us now is Brandon Jones. Brandon actually has friends who live down the street. And Brandon, you say they actually wanted to try to evacuate, but they couldn't. What happened?
Yeah, by the time they saw the fire, they couldn't get out. The fire line had already been established, and up here in the hills, the roads are just so small, there's barely room for the fire trucks. So by the time the fire trucks had positioned themselves and they began to put the fire out, there was just no way that they could get down.
Yeah, it was hard for us to get up here in just a normal SUV, so imagine maneuvering these big trucks.
Right.
Your friends are doing okay, though? Their home is not damaged?
Yeah, everything's fine. They live directly across the street, and so far the firefighters have told me that everything across the street's safe.
And Brandon, how fast did these firefighters get here and respond and act to these fires?
Immediately. My friend sent me a text message of the home burning, and by the time I got here, they had already had everything set up, and the fire was being put out.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much, and hope you get to see your friend soon.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons why they were probably able to get this fire under control pretty quick is the winds tonight, Mark and Colleen, have been incredibly calm. I mean, there's not really even a breeze right now, so that has definitely helped with this firefight. You can also see what these firefighters have been doing is they've just been gushing this area, this hill, with water. And they told me when we were kind of north of the fire, above the fire, they wanted to try to protect the homes up there. So they've been dropping water. They were dousing the vegetation up there, letting it all kind of run down the hill to protect all these homes around it. So we do know a few homes have been damaged, but the good news to report, according to the firefighters here on scene, is no injuries to report. But just a pretty remarkable response from them. And it just shows you that they came here prepared, because even in case somebody was injured, they did have the gear ready to go to get people out of here if need be. Reporting live in Studio City, Kevin Osbeck, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Kevin, thank you very much. Now let's get an aerial perspective from Chris Christie in Air 7. Chris?
Yeah, you can see what's left of that fire, a complete knockdown. It does appear there's an open gas line that they are working on there, but in the meantime, you can see two large houses completely burnt to the ground. Fire is basically out. Otherwise, if we widen out, you can see there's a lot of fire apparatus standing by, making sure that nothing in there, no hot spots, flare up again. And earlier this evening, that was the really big concern, because this fire was rip-roaring and spreading embers up the hill. It is on the lower end here of Sunswept Drive, and you can see behind it, if we widen out, that whole hillside was glowing with flames, and now there are fire trucks both on top and at the bottom of the hill that are now making sure that none of those hot spots flare up. Reporting live from Air 7, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7.
Yeah, Chris, Dallas, thank you. That Studio City fire was one of two that broke late in the afternoon, early evening tonight. That had a lot of people very nervous, very frightened about what the potential problems could be. The other fire that erupted just hours ago, that was in the Hollywood Hills, forcing evacuations in the heart of Hollywood, affecting iconic locations like the TCL Chinese Theater, the Capitol Records Building, and more. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Caputo live with the latest on that fire tonight. Tim.
And Mark, you mentioned Fuller earlier tonight, and we wanted to come over here to give people a sense of what exactly they're dealing with and the biggest concern those firefighters have as that fire started to work its way down Runyon Canyon. There's a lot of apartments over here. This is obviously the kind of trailhead for a lot of folks who are hiking up the canyon themselves, but this part of Hollywood, this section right underneath the canyon, is full of huge apartment buildings, some very tall, but certainly taking up a lot of space, and would be a shame if any of them caught fire. So obviously they paid a lot of attention on the fire as it was coming down the canyon. A lot of air support this evening, and the evacuation order was massive here, and it went into effect, and essentially everyone heeded the warning. We saw cars leaving every single direction you could because it's Hollywood Boulevard north all the way from Laurel Canyon to the 101. So essentially all those folks, including the people who live in the apartments, were told to evacuate this area. Many of them have been watching the coverage from Pacific Palisades, from Pasadena and Altadena, and just hoped it wouldn't come to their neighborhood. So when it finally did, they didn't waste an instant to grab their things and get out of here. An update for the fire itself, it's about 60 acres. We were up in the canyon a short time ago over on the other side with some of the firefighters putting out some of the hot spots. It's not that bad. The air support certainly has helped an awful lot when it comes to putting out the bigger portions that were really working their way down towards the residential area. I can tell you right now, there are fire trucks like these at essentially every single point moving
and obviously, you know, Mother Nature is helping, because out here it is not as windy as it was last night. Last night where we were, it was just violent. Those winds were violent.
Yeah. The wind slowing down has definitely helped, I think.
Well, you're a very good friend, rushing to help your friend. That's wonderful. All right, thank you for speaking with us. That was Brandon. I'm going to send it back to you guys. This is a total knockdown. The main, the house that caught on fire here at, what is it, Sunswept, that is a total loss. The house behind it, also, we don't know if it's a total loss, but some serious damage to it. All right, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
And Gina, we should point out one of the key reasons that it is a total knockdown at this point is because how different the winds are where you are tonight compared to where you were last night in Altadena.
Absolutely. I mean, there is no wind where we are right now. It is actually a beautiful night. I mean, if we look at the trees, they're not swaying back and forth. They're not moving at all. There is no wind here. So thank goodness for that, because if it had been as windy as it was last night, we would be telling you, we would be reporting a completely different scenario here.
Yep, a reminder of the power of those winds, and hopefully, Marla, this means we're starting to turn the corner and moving to a different phase of this, where we are maybe out of the immediate crisis mode. That would be hopefully the good news, but our thanks to Gina for her reporting out there.
The last 36 hours have been an absolute roller coaster of emotions, mainly sad and devastating emotions, unfortunately. So yes, we could be turning that corner, which is a wonderful thing. The Palisades fire, now let's get to that one. That erupted about 36 hours ago. In fact, 10:30 a.m. yesterday morning, and we know almost 16,000 acres have burned. Susan.
And I believe if you look kind of right in this area, it's because there's houses on the ridge here. So that's what they're trying to protect, it looks like, is they're trying to protect the houses on the ridge there from, obviously burning. So that's what they're doing right there. So this is the video. I just wanted to show you that because it's always such cool video when we get to see the night dropping operations here from the quick reaction
Where
force.
is that though, Mike?
So they are, let's see, right now they are working, so they're dipping in and out of the school. Gosh, forgive me, I just forgot the name. Pepperdine. Good Lord.
Oh, okay, Malibu.
Yeah, they're dipping in and out at Pepperdine, and they're working in the hills just right above that off of Piuma Road is where I've just been kind of watching them. So they've been up in that area kind of working on that, and that's where they've kind of been focusing on tonight. And that's, ironically enough, we're not able to see that because it's so deep down there that we can't get it there. And I should also point out that this is apparently just the week of flight restrictions. Every time there is a fire, the fire department, for their safety and their air operations, they also put up what's called a TFR, temporary flight restriction, which makes it more difficult for us to kind of get in and out of certain places. So we were able to look at the fire from the north. Earlier, we were able to look at it from the eastern front of the fire in West LA. But in this particular area that we're working in, I don't have eyes on it. So this was pretty interesting to get. This video, I believe, was shot around 8 o'clock tonight. So lots going on there as we look again at the live pictures from SkyCal. And then as soon as I can read through this proclamation, you guys, and let you know what the exact times are of this
curfew. Mike, I was trying to read through it too because I was just curious here. And I looked through the proclamation, and there is a portion that says possibly from sundown to sunrise.
So that would make sense because they are calling it a nighttime curfew.
Yeah, between sunset and sunrise is what they're saying.
Yeah, a curfew is hereby imposed in the city of Santa Monica in all areas subject to a mandatory evacuation order. So that's, we want to be clear too, not the entire city of Santa Monica, but the areas that are in the mandatory evacuation area. And if we can come back to my computer, I can show you where in Santa Monica the mandatory evacuations are.
The pier, that's one.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah, did it go that far south? Let me look, hang on.
I thought you said earlier that the...
So as you look right here, and as the chief told you here, this is the first home right here, Chief. This is the one that they knocked down, right? This is the first one, and then the second one is spread to 2 homes lost, the hillside above it, that's brush threatened. You don't want to see that get on fire. You don't want to see that burn, because then you've got to look at what's happening on the west side. We've had people calling, wondering about Harvard, Westlake, and other schools impacted. So far, this fire is out. They were successful. You see them throwing water on it. They will continue to do that. And once again, we are watching our heroes hard at work as they have been. And tonight, again, as we've seen with the Sunset Fire just 2 miles away, this one is going to end on a positive note in the sense that they managed to quickly take care of it, even though in this fire in Studio City, we've got 2 houses lost. Let's go back to you.
That Assistant Chief said they're tired, but they're doing it.
Yes.
Tired, but doing it. All right, we went out when I was. Switch gears. Send things over to NBC4's Tracy Leong. She's live on the ground in Altadena for us. Tracy.
Yeah, Michael, I'm in the North Arroyo neighborhood, and as we were driving through these streets, you can probably notice completely dark except from the glow of little fires here and there, and from the emergency personnel, their lights, as well as law enforcement, their lights. That's what's lighting up the streets out here. But we've seen a lot of power lines, de-energized power lines that are laying in the middle of the road or laying low as we drive through. So we've had to be very careful, Sean Browning, my photographer, and I, especially in our live truck, just making sure we're not hitting any of those or hitting any of those branches. Now, the fires are mostly out, at least through this area, but as we drove through, Michael and Colleen, we just saw homes looking just like this. This is a garage completely collapsed, the home just a shell of what it once was. You can still see the fire and smoke smoldering inside, and these cars, so many cars just left behind. People who evacuated, they only could take one car. They only could grab what they could to get out. And so we're seeing a lot of these cars still smoking, just completely destroyed, burned in that fire that swept through last night. We are driving through, and maybe one home is saved. It's a miracle on some of these blocks, but for the most part, hundreds just devastated, just completely leveled. I spoke to a woman earlier tonight. Fortunately, her home did not burn down, and she said she's going to stay over tonight to make sure it stays that way.
When I got here, I find out that it's still standing. I was so emotional. I'm sorry.
Ruth Harrow, shocked and relieved her Altadena home on West Palm Street is still standing.
I was like, what? They told me it's gone. But, you know, I'm just so sad for my neighbors because we always are good neighbors, you know, and when I started walking from there, I said, wow, all the corners, this and this and this and this, and this is the only one standing. What I can say, I don't have words.
Friends told Harrow her place was wiped out in the fast-moving Eaton fire that devoured hundreds of homes in Altadena. Take a look at the Bank of America building. It also destroyed dozens of businesses on Lake Avenue. Earlier, we watched fire battle the raging flames shooting from this Bank of America. Harrow's friends and family dumping buckets of water on the hot spot still smoldering next door. Her neighbor telling her to use their pool water since water has been shut off in the area. While Harrow has been ordered to evacuate, she plans to spend the night with family to protect her home.
This is all my life effort, and I have to take care of it.
And you are taking a live look, Michael and Colleen, at all the emergency crews and personnel right here on West Palm Street. Very different from what I saw last night as we were driving through the area where a lot of the homes were burning. You know, resources, as we know, were stretched very thin, which is why they were fortunately able to bring a lot of these emergency personnel in from out of state to help out and monitor this massive fire, which, as we know, has exploded in size. Still zero containment, so this is very important. This is a very positive sight for a lot of people who live out here tonight. Reporting live in Altadena, back to you in the studio.
And we heard from the fire chief in Pasadena today, Tracy. The firefighter said, or the chief said, the firefighters are exhausted. They attacked 15 house fires out there. He said they didn't save a single one, but they saved entire neighborhoods. So we are seeing some hot spots out there. We are still seeing a lot of personnel on scene out there. In fact, just a few blocks away, we have another reporter, our Dave Summers from our affiliate, our sister station in San Diego tonight. He joins us live from Harriet Street with more on what's going on there. Dave.
Right, we are on Harriet Street, right close to Olive Avenue, and with another example of the Eaton's destructive capabilities here. What we are seeing are firefighters throwing water on this home that was once really just embers and a spot fire that became fully involved just within the last half hour. Now they're throwing water on this house, not so much to save this home because it has to be surrendered, but to protect this house on the other side, which has not been burned at all, and we have firefighters on both sides just keeping this fire contained to this area. And it is just a way to protect what they can, save what they can, and surrender what they cannot. We spoke with a number of Altadena residents today, some here in the neighborhood helping out their neighbors and even old neighbors, and some here just telling us how they're coping with the loss.
It's hard to say right now. It's very emotional. Like, we've been here in Pasadena for 22 years, and then we never seen nothing like this.
We have to play our part too, so I'm just here to do what I can selflessly for whoever needs it. So my neighbors did that for me on that street, and I'm doing that for my neighbors tonight. So I'm just going to sit on the street and make sure that there's no problem with their places or this place that's still standing. We're glad to see that still standing.
So the temperature here is cool and the wind is slight.
Going on the other side of the street, more homes burned right over here. And then as we go across, I'll let Brian go over, you can kind of see in the shadows that house is burned. On the right behind it, it looks like there's a home standing. Unfortunately, there are flames on that roof that have been smoldering for quite some time. We haven't been able to see any crews if they're on that street. It's on another street to the south of us here that we haven't been able to get to. So hopefully crews will be able to get there and possibly save that home. But there is just so much damage and destruction here. And Mark, as I said, we've been crisscrossing Altadena. We have gone along Altadena Road, basically from Lincoln, and then gone to the east all the way across to Lake. And
We have seen an Aldi grocery store that has been destroyed, St. Mark's Episcopal Church, which is a very well-known church and very popular church, a very large church in Altadena, that was burned to the ground. We have seen several schools that have been completely burned to the ground and damaged, so many businesses, and it just continues. And we have also seen just tons of firefighters. We have seen engines kind of roaming through the neighborhoods here. I think they're really just looking for the hot spots or any issues that could spread the fire. These gas lines, while they are a concern, they aren't going to spread the fire per se, because it really is contained, and since the wind has essentially died down, don't have any breeze at this point in this part of Altadena now. So it's not really a risk right now for spreading any fires because there's no breeze to blow anything, and it's not actually burning anything other than that natural gas. So there's no real concern about that right now. What is the big concern is trying to find any of those spots that are actively burning because it is a fire, such as the home we see over here. Now that's going to be an issue for them because that's a house that is smoldering, and as we've been here, there you can see a better view, Brian. It's starting to grow in the attic there, if you can see. So again, this is what happens: is the embers get up into the attic space and just continue to grow and build, and then once it's in there, then it goes down into the walls and the whole house is involved. So this house definitely is going to continue to burn until crews can get in there and to put it all out. It just utter destruction up here. The worst part, as you said, Mark, though, those 5 lives lost. From what we are hearing, it sounds like they occurred at the beginning of the fire. Folks that simply couldn't get out. They were caught because this fire erupted so quickly without warning, and those 80-mile-an-hour winds, they just didn't have time to grab anything and were just running for their lives, unfortunately, and did not make it. That is absolutely heartbreaking and probably the worst part in all of this, but certainly also devastating for all of those that have lost their homes, they've lost their businesses, they've lost their livelihoods. So it is going to take a lot for the area here in Altadena, parts of Pasadena, where there has been so much damage from the Eaton fire, and certainly the firefight is going to continue. We have not seen any active flame from the actual wildfire, I would say, tonight at all, as we've been driving all around the area. No active wildfire flame. We have seen, as I said, these flames that you're seeing, where it's the gas lines that are burning or homes that have caught fire simply because of some other embers, but no active flames from the wildfire, and that's good news. I'm hoping maybe by tomorrow we will get some percentage of containment on this Eaton fire. Live in Altadena, Leanne Suter, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Leanne, let me ask you a quick question then. So that house that's behind you that is of concern, possibly intact but possibly endangered by the flames that are encroaching on it, can you give us your location so that if, for example, first responders haven't gotten word about where this is, maybe they can hear from our broadcast and maybe send somebody out there and deal with it?
Yeah, we've been trying to catch one of these trucks. There were a couple when we pulled up, and they've kind of all moved around. We are on Mountain View, just to literally on the corner at Glenrose, just to the east of Glenrose. From what we can tell, it appears that that home is tucked in on a little private kind of cul-de-sac here off of Mountain View. We were trying to figure out how you get into this neighborhood, but it appears there's a private little cul-de-sac near Grandeur Avenue, and that's where that home is, at least where we see the roof smoldering. I'm going to see if we can get a little closer, Brian and Mark. Maybe we can get a better idea. It's hard to tell if this home has actually burned earlier, and that's why there isn't much concern without going up too close into some of this damage. Let me see if we can get in here just a little bit. It does appear, Brian, does it appear that that house has already burned? We can see it across the way. Let's see if we can get a better look at this, Mark, because it really is hard to tell. Yeah, it looks like that might have already, yeah, that already burned. Okay, so this structure we're looking at has already burned. It is not something that appears to be new. It has already gone, so it's just them letting it kind of burn out. But as you can see, nothing tremendous, but that house is damaged and has burned through. So we couldn't quite make it out from the street. So that one already is a total loss, this structure that we're looking at here. And then once I look down, it appears that there are some flames inside the building as well. So it does appear that's a total loss. But if you look around this backyard, you see, I mean, this was their home. Everything just, here's the water heater, the only thing left. And what you see on repeat, this kind of things, you see the water heaters and you see the chimneys. The chimneys are always the one thing left standing, somehow survives all of these. In one of our earlier live shots, Mark, we were showing you, the damage with the cars where the metal simply melted. So again, a lot of cleanup and a lot of work as fire crews continue to survey the area and keep an eye out for any of these issues in terms of any hot spots that could ignite and cause other problems for homes that have survived. Live in Altadena, Leanne Suter, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Leanne, thank you. We want to quickly check in with Dallas Raines because it looks like the winds have certainly died down, certainly a very different picture from the way it was last night. Dallas.
That's right, Mark, and we have a dramatic time lapse to show you the difference between hurricane force winds last night and tonight. With the Hollywood fire was burning toward the south, and all of a sudden they hit that with those helicopters, and it just really did a number on that. So, but you can't fly those, of course, when you have hurricane force winds. We take a look at the Santa Ana winds. The extreme is what we have. About once every
tighten up security here for people and for everyone trying to fight these fires. It's needed.
You know, unless they can have someone designated to do that, because it would slow the process down. But why not? You know, they might even get a volunteer who would be responsible for checking
parking enforcement.
People, absolutely, just to keep that clear.
Yeah. And Pat and Leslie, if I could just mention, because we were talking about first responders, one of my contacts, let me just pull this up real quickly for you. She is very close with the Los Angeles Fire Department, and all fire departments for that matter. But a lot of people have asked, you know, we're so grateful for the firefighters and what they're doing. What can we do to help support the firefighters? And many people go and they donate, or they leave food for the firefighters, like granola bars, stuff like that. But the firefighters say they're so appreciative of that, but they would really love some protein food, some protein meals. They say we need protein to keep our fuel going. You know, they're working long hours, they're not getting much sleep. So if you feel inclined to donate, you'd like to donate something, anything protein. So I'm thinking like chicken, you know, steak, anything that sounds good that's protein, they would love to have. But they're so appreciative of anything you want to donate. So, you know, everything's on the table, but protein would be the #1 choice.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because it's good to know people do want to help, and that's the first time I have heard of something so specific, but it's for them, and they know what they need better than any of us.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Lauren.
Right. Yeah.
Keeps you full a little bit longer, too. Okay, from the coast now to a beloved hiking spot that was hit by fire this evening, dangerously close to homes.
Yeah, this was pretty scary for a while. It happened in Runyon Canyon, and it triggered mandatory evacuations there. And our Tom Waite is there. Tom, you are familiar with this neighborhood, so tell us what it was like for you and what it's like right now.
Yeah, I mean, Pat, this is such an iconic, legendary kind of spot here in Los Angeles, right? It's a very popular location for any number of age groups to just come and hike and exercise and just kind of people watch. It's just a gorgeous place to be in. I mean, I'm sure it will be again. I'm sure we're going to wake up tomorrow and see, you know, quite a bit of damage here and charred hillsides. But, you know, as you're looking at our screen, you probably don't see a whole lot except for maybe a fire engine there on the service road. And that's a good thing, because a few hours ago, that hillside was pretty orange. There was a lot of fire there. Let's go to some video. It was pretty terrifying earlier this evening, as firefighters were just battling this thing with everything they had, bringing in air support, water drops, everything you can possibly imagine to try to douse this thing and get it under control. You could see this fire burning from so many different locations across LA, from the 101. We were coming up from downtown from a press conference with the mayor and other city and county officials, and we could see it burning there. And you could see it from any number of other places. It was a very large fire, and firefighters just incredibly blasted it with just all kinds of water from the air and from the ground. And also they just had hand crews out here, all kinds of impressive ground support. It was really a sight to see. And of course, the fact that it wasn't very windy out was very, very helpful. Still had some gusts earlier. Now it's still, I mean, I'm looking at the palm trees, nothing is moving. And, you know, it just was a very powerful and intense effort that firefighters just should get incredible credit for. The consequences of not containing this fire the way they did could have just been catastrophic. I mean, think about so many wood frame buildings here in Hollywood, and they could have just been absolutely turned into just open flame infernos. We saw what happened in parts of the Palisades and Malibu and other cities, you know, over the last 24 hours. It's just been heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and your heart goes out to so many people who lost so much. And
we wish you well, and we're pulling for all of you, and we hope we all can come together to help all those folks. Chelsea Edwards, thank you so much for your reporting tonight. I've seen a lot of speculation online from folks that are talking about potential arson, concerns that there may be people going around setting fires. We don't have any official confirmation of that. I know people have different videos that they've posted as well that are concerned about things like that. We don't know in terms of the big major fires what started them. There are investigations into that, but you know, be vigilant. If you see anybody doing anything suspicious, you know, call it in and try to get fire crews out to those fires really quickly to make sure that we don't have more scenes like that.
Let's talk more about what is burned in the Palisades fire. Iconic places like this, Moon Shadows. I know a lot of you are familiar with it. The iconic oceanfront restaurant. It's been open since 1966. It has been destroyed in the Palisades fire. Of course, it's known for this. Its dining room perched over the water. The restaurant had been a favorite for decades. While representatives could not be reached, videos are going viral to heartfelt tributes from fans mourning the loss.
So along this stretch, just south of
what's the latest there?
Well, Mark, we just got an update from LA City firefighters here on scene. We are told that there are actually 2 homes damaged in this fire. The main one with the most extensive damage is that one right there behind me where firefighters are still really focused on. Now, right here from our vantage point, we don't see any flames. We don't see any hot spots right now. But firefighters do tell me absolutely there's still an active fire inside that home. They say there's fire inside the walls. We just can't see it, but it's happening right now. And that's why they are still just dumping and pouring water on it. Let's take a look at this video from Air 7 HD from around 9:30 this evening. You can see at that point that home was fully engulfed in flames. And then you see part of its roof actually collapse onto the 2nd story of that home. Again, that is one of 2 homes damaged in this house fire tonight. Now, take a look at this second piece of video. You can see what an intense firefight this was. The firefighters here tackled this from both the air, also on the ground. You see those precision drops from the air. We've seen multiple airdrops this evening as they try to wet not just that home, but also some of the properties around that home to protect them. Also, we've had 50 firefighters here on the ground, again, just dousing that home with water. I want to bring in live right now Assistant Chief Louis Adano with LA City Fire. What an incredible job you guys did getting this out pretty quickly. I mean, I know there's still some pockets of fire inside, but you're
2 days ago. It is completely a different Palisades village here.
Wow, that is so sad to hear, Darsha. It's Kathy. Great job out there. Thank you so much. We want to continue our coverage, though, right now. Thank you, Darsha, with Valina Jones from our Bay Area station, who is also covering the Palisades fire. She joins us right now at PCH and Sunset. Is that still your location?
That's right. We are at PCH and Sunset, and just within the past 30 minutes, we've seen a new fire spark at one of these homes and buildings here. As you go up the hill, you can see the flames here tonight in the night sky, and this is really kind of the story that we have seen throughout the evening hours here in Pacific Palisades, where it's no longer complete neighborhoods that are on fire, but it's sporadic fires throughout these different areas. We have seen the destruction from yesterday as well as today, but tonight we're also seeing new fires come, like this one right here that we're looking at. We were up in the hills a couple of hours ago on Palisade Drive, where we saw a whole entire community engulfed in flames. Take a look. We are on Palisades Drive at Palisades Villas, where this community has been completely engulfed in flames. Tonight, the wind is billowing. Right through the school, right
through it. The windows are all blown out, and it is very heartbreaking to see this. And I looked this up. The school was actually built in 1931. It is a middle school, and they build themselves as an innovative school that teaches theater and art and draws children that love those things and makes school fun and makes them want to come to school. And right here we can see that the garden that the students have been growing has burned. But if we walk this way and pan to the right, the iconic tower is still standing. And according to the Altadena Historical Society, when this school was built, the students had the option of either getting a swimming pool or a tower, and they voted for this tower. Right now, the tower is still standing, but I'm seeing embers blowing through the two windows there, so not clear the extent of the damage to the tower, but for the moment, it is standing. And as we were driving around the school, we could see that firefighters are staging in the back, and they are trying to defend what is left of the school. And what is so heartbreaking about this is also driving around this neighborhood, we know that many of these students not only lost their school, or at least part of their school, but also their homes. This neighborhood has been completely devastated and leveled. There is block after block where there are no longer any homes standing. And these middle schoolers also, if you think back, did not get a normal or average elementary school experience. They experienced the COVID shutdowns, and now their middle school experience won't be normal either. So it's just heartbreak on top of heartbreak for these students. And earlier today, about a couple of hours ago actually, there was a firefighter who sent out a picture on social media, and it showed a firefighter actually breaking into the auditorium of the school, and there were comments from people saying that they work here and that they are absolutely heartbroken to see what has happened to Elliott Arts Magnet School. That's the latest from Altadena. Let's send it back to you.
So heartbreaking, and you think of probably all the students that have been there for so many years watching their school burn. Thank you, Christy, for that. This next guest is hopefully going to give you a little bit of hope about the best of humanity, because I love what he's doing. I just gave him a shout out, and he was watching, and so I said, why don't you call in? And his name is Andrew Gruel. He's a chef. You see him often on Fox News Channel, and he's been on our show, The Issue Is, several times. He's based in Orange County, and he has been basically using his restaurant as a way to feed people and also collect donations for people as well. He joins us live on the phone. Chef, thanks so much for what you do. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've been up to for the last 24 hours?
Certainly. Thank you so much for having me on, and also thank you all for the amazing coverage. You know, initially last night when we saw the fires pop up, I just posted a note out there about coming to the restaurant if you needed a place to just eat, if you needed a place to be, as well as we would help and provide hot meals. And then behind the scenes, we're also offering up our house to people in the DMs, if you will. But that grew to something bigger. We started having customers come into the restaurant asking, how can I help? What can I do? And we have been coordinating and communicating with a couple groups up in LA that were giving us specific lists of what they needed. So we had put some bins out front of the restaurant while we were cooking and setting up all these meals to bring up. And people just started showing up with truckloads, pallets. We actually had pallets sent in of water and products and formula, baby food, shoes, socks, jackets, blankets, every single thing you can imagine that they would need. And then guests started showing up and saying, we had one guy come up in his full Tesla truck. He would load his truck up and follow us up there. I mean, we took a caravan up there, multiple truckloads. We were up there for about 2.5, 3 hours, dropping off hot food. And by the time we got back, we already had 2 more truckloads that had been dropped off at the restaurant for us to start delivering back to various outlets in Los Angeles.
And we've talked about the Dream Center several times tonight. Earlier tonight, we actually interviewed Pastor Matthew Barnett on the air, and it looked like you stopped by the Dream Center.
Yes, the Dream Center right now is the primary outlet through which we're working and they're helping to distribute some of these products. We also dropped with the World Central Kitchen, all the hot meals, et cetera, and tomorrow we'll be doing the same. But what Matthew's doing over at the Dream Center, they're all volunteers. Everybody is so incredibly positive. It's funny, they got music playing outside, positive music, and there's just pallets of stuff being dropped. They're organizing, coordinating. And this was also in coordination, I should mention. It was Glenn Beck's nonprofit who had connected us together, and we knew Matthew as well. So this was just a great coming together of people. And, you know, like I said, right now I've probably got 300 messages of people that want to help, donate, send goods. We're receiving Amazon notifications left and right. We had people dropping stuff off at the restaurant no less than 15 minutes ago. And when I say stuff, I'm not talking about a bag of goods. I mean, we're like our own Walmart over there. It's unbelievable.
That's so cool.
So in other words, you've gotten hundreds and probably thousands of people saying yes, chef, to you, Andrew?
For the first time in my life, but I must say, so my wife Lauren is the one who's doing all this with me. She's coordinating so much of this in the background, and we have our kids with us as well.
And then
so
we're watching them on the screen right now. Those are your kids. I don't know if you've got a monitor, but those are your kids working.
Yeah, well, those are the kids working. Those are my kids, just so they don't think I kidnapped somebody for free child labor.
Yeah. It's okay if it's your kids, right?
But it's like, this is the first time that they actually have behaved really well, so we think we're going to keep this up for at least another week or two, just so that they're on their best behavior.
Well, thank you so much for all that you're doing. If you want to drop off donations, this is the Calico Fish House in Huntington Beach. What have you heard, though, you know, when people drop things off, what are you hearing from them? They just feel this need to step up and help?
Yeah, most people don't know how to help, right? So they're like, should I be sending my money to a random organization? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think what they've been saying to us is, I know if I buy this particular good, you're going to get it into the hands of somebody who needs it right away. So there's that efficiency element, because we know how important this is right now. And I think they feel comfortable doing that, coming to the restaurant, as well as we have actually had a lot of people who have come to the restaurant in need of help, who have evacuated, either taken buses out of Los Angeles. You know, these are not, you know, it's funny, there's these horrible toxic comments online where they're like, oh, everybody's rich. And even if that was the case, you know, people lose things. That's totally irrelevant. But we are having a lot of people who are struggling and on financial hard times who have come down, are either going to stay with friends, and we've provided them with free meals. And it's just those types of things. So this is a whole mixed bag of people in all different areas of life. But the customers see that, and they appreciate that. A lot of customers who have helped us, we've said, hey, you have a free meal, right? Like, I'm not letting you pay. So it's kind of this merry-go-round of help.
So there are a lot of people watching this right now that are going to say, that sounds great. How can I help? What can I do tomorrow? Where do I go? What do I do? What's your answer?
Well, we're going to be taking multiple trips up again to LA. We're going to be cooking fresh food. But I think for people to kind of help quickly, the most important thing is that they are still looking for diapers, wipes, baby formula, water, socks, shoes, kids' shoes. Those are shoes of all sizes, but especially kids' shoes, and hygiene products, as well as feminine hygiene products. So any of those donations at the restaurant, we are going to be just taking truckloads up there along with the hot food in tranches. So they can come by 16600 Pacific Coast Highway. That's in the Sunset Beach area of Huntington Beach. Everybody can also, Lauren's a lot better online. They can message her on any of these outlets and help to coordinate. And then, once again, the Dream Center is really the central area in which a lot of this is getting distributed, at least on our end.
You're doing God's work, Chef Andrew Gruel. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you were watching when Alex gave you the shout out, because it's really nice to be able to report some good news. I mean, we've been live hour after hour, commercial free, and we have just been reporting bad news, and more bad news. So thank you so much for, you know, doing what you do and lightening up the newscast.
And giving us some hope.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Important work. Andrew Gruel. Excellent job, and maybe we can get out there and get our cameras out there tomorrow. It'd be cool to show that off a little bit as we move into the hopefully next phase of this, which is going to be the rebuilding phase.
Recovery phase, for sure. Okay, so Palisades fire, now onto the Eaton fire. That's where Laura Diaz is in Altadena. Laura?
Yes, we're on Home Park Avenue, and we're standing on a cul-de-sac. I wanted to show you this because basically this was a ring of fire. As you can see it, we talked a little bit earlier about how some homes were able to survive and others were absolutely decimated. If you look off to the side there, you can see that one structure is partially standing. Then over here, completely gutted with just the fireplace. We still have the spot fires coming off of the gas, but as we move in a counterclockwise fashion, you look behind me and look at that, just total decimation, including a car, just charred ruins. It looks as though a bomb absolutely fell on this cul-de-sac, and this is what was left behind. This is what's left of people's lives. Look at this, charred ruins. Looks like it was beams, some kind of metal, I don't know, of some sort of facade that was in the house. And I'm sure that people had just moments. As we look over my shoulder, you can see two cars. There's one off to the far left that's still intact, but people absolutely had to just take what they could and get out. And this is the story that we've been telling over the last couple of days of people in just extreme situations. We know that the fire was highly combustible. In fact, of the 5 deaths that we had here in Eaton, there were in 3 different households, and it was described as being an explosive fire. So those people just didn't have the chance to get out. You know, as someone who's covered the news for many years here in Southern California, and I'm well versed on the phenomenon of Santa Ana winds, which used to be just a couple of months out of the year, and now we find them just about 12 months out of the year. And what it has done to people is to put them in a position where you really never know when a fire might strike. And we know that we learn lessons each and every time about what we can do to try to protect our homes, try to protect our lives. But when it happens in an instant, people really don't have much time to respond. The best they can hope for is that they're able to get out of the house intact with their family and just grab whatever they can. That's the latest here from Eaton. I'm sending it back to you, Marla and Alex.
And it really is remarkable, Laura, if you think about it, how many people were able to get out of the house. I mean, obviously, horrible, the thought of 5 people that died in all this. But if you think about the size and scope of this fire and the ferociousness of it, and more than 1,000 structures burned, and we're really lucky to have 5. And that means that a lot of people got out and listened to those evacuation orders.
Absolutely, Alex. And also, we really can never compliment the people who work in the fire departments all over Southern California. You know, people come from all over the world, and they train with our people because they are that high echelon of somebody who knows all of the things that it takes, the science and the hard work and all of the training that goes into people here in Southern California, the men and women who work in the various fire departments. They are at the top of the training profession. So we're very fortunate that we have them to protect our homes and our lives. But you're so right that in that instant, when you have to make the decision, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to leave right now. Now, I can tell you this, where we are standing here, this area is a little bit easier to get out of because as we were driving up, we found roadways that were quite expansive. When you're talking about the area there in Studio City or in the Hollywood Hills, it's really difficult to navigate those turns, and they are so narrow that sometimes the fire trucks can't get up that narrow roadway, and they have to pull. They have to pull those hoses all the way up. It is back-breaking work. So hats off to the men and women who've worked so hard to keep us safe here in Southern California. And my heart does go out to those people who will have to start all over again. But if you have your family, you have everything.
Well said, Laura. Really, really well said. And we know that the Eaton fire, that's where arrests were made for those 3 looters. We learned this early on today from LA County Sheriff Robert Luna. Laura, thank you for your reporting.
And let's talk more about that idea of looting. LA County's new district attorney says looters are not going to be able to get away with it. Nathan Hochman sharing a video of his sister's former home, which was destroyed by the Palisades fire.
Pacific Palisades at the site of what used to be my sister's home.
She's lived here for a while, a long time, with her family, and now this home, along with the homes in the street in this neighborhood, are just gone. I've been here for over 60 years. I've not seen devastation like this in my lifetime. I mean, you have to harken back to the 1990s when we were hit with the floods and the fires and the earthquakes and the riots to even get close to this.
Hochman also promised to crack down on those exploiting the crisis. We spoke to him live earlier tonight during our coverage.
So the reports of looting have been coming across both law enforcement and the DA's office. I want to send an unmistakably clear message to looters or anybody who thinks that they can prey on people who have endured these tragedies. We are going to arrest you, we are going to prosecute you, and we are going to punish you to the full extent of the law. So again, it's the tragedies that are going on right now are occupying.
Showing you tomorrow morning, we do have some winds gusting up to 26 miles per hour in Santa Clarita, but certainly not as strong as they were yesterday at this same point. And also some gusts there in the IE up to 26 miles per hour. But looking at the shading here, overall, I would say we could find winds anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour, even as we head into our Thursday. And there will likely be some isolated spots anywhere from 40 to 50 miles per hour. But that's mainly for the foothills and the mountains, specifically out across areas in San Bernardino, Riverside counties, and the San Gabriel Valley. What's next as we track more of this wind across much of Southern California? The winds continue to subside overnight tonight. There's another round of wind as we get into our Thursday, but it's not as strong. That's the major takeaway. Again, those winds ranging anywhere from 20 to 40 miles per hour out of the northeast, and locally they could be higher than that. However, critical fire threat does remain for much of LA County, even across areas in Orange County and the Inland Empire. And the impacts for us, for the residents close to the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, even the Hearst fire there in Sylmar, is the air quality. Wildfire smoke advisory is going to stay up until Thursday night, and now you can see some of that smoke starting to move on off to the east, out across areas in Orange County, as well as San Bernardino County, Ontario included in that. So widespread impacts as a result of the fires that we're tracking, the Santa Ana winds, and a big concern with air quality, not just tomorrow, but even as we go throughout the next few days. That's the very latest. We'll continue to track it for you as we go throughout the night. Kathy and Colleen, I'll send it back over your way.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you mentioned moisture here.
Yeah.
So you know where I'm going on this. Begs the question, will we see rain anytime soon in the near future, or even long-range forecasts on this?
Yeah, we were looking out 6 to 10 days and even as far as 8 to 14 days. And we look at what's called the Climate Prediction Center, and climatology is telling us that even that far out into the future, we are going to stay dry here in Southern California. Just advancing the maps here because I want to show you, and I think that was David Bigger doing that. I appreciate the assist on that. January 14th into the 18th, look at this. We are looking at below normal conditions for much of the West Coast. And then you talk about our rainy season so far. We've not seen a lot of precipitation. It has been bone dry across much of our area here. We've got a little bit more than 1/10 of an inch of rain so far in LA County. We've got a deficit of more than 4.5 inches of rain. And the reason why it's so dry is so far this season, all of the rain, we've been talking about it for weeks on end, out across the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, where they have been seeing rounds of rain, even high terrain snow. So because the pattern is blocking all of that moisture across Southern California, they get it to the north, we stay dry to the south, and you can see the impacts as a result of that. It's dry in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and these Santa Ana winds make it dry all the way down to the surface, which is why even still, as we get into our Thursday and Friday, we've got critical fire weather. It's a concern. So the winds push out, but it stays dry on the ground.
I believe
on
the backside of those properties, which we can't see from the road here from Pacific Coast Highway, but on the backside of those properties, it appears that fire crews are working to get a handle on some flames there on the back end of those properties that are threatening this white home that is in the center of this portion of Pacific Coast Highway here. This is the 18,800 block of Pacific Coast Highway. It has just been so unpredictable, as we know, how this fire burns. There are instances where there is an entire row of homes all gone, and then there are situations like this here where there is one home that is seemingly spared in the middle of a block. It is so unpredictable how that happens. We've heard the comparisons between Lahaina and Paradise up north, and no matter how you want to categorize it, what words you want to use, it is just devastating. And it is something that is unimaginable how the coastline here and these beachfront properties on Pacific Coast Highway, how this part of Malibu and Pacific Palisades has just forever been changed. As I've mentioned in some of my earlier reporting, it's not only just homes, but it's also restaurants and businesses that are popular in this area, like Moon Shadows, that was up a little bit further on Pacific Coast Highway, now reduced to a pile of rubble. We were there a few hours ago. It was still smoldering, but that restaurant that was so popular, a staple in the community, no longer there. Also, the Real Inn, and also Rosenthal Wines, that was known for those popular big chairs and table out front, also no longer there. So we know we've seen homes, we've seen businesses, we've seen schools. The impact of the Palisade fire here, just the impact is just far-reaching for everyone in the community, and it is certainly going to be an adjustment as those Santa Ana winds eventually die down over the next day or so, as containment grows on this fire, and as people start coming back into this community to get a look at their property or what was their home. It is going to be very difficult for many to process. And as I've also spoken about in some of my earlier reporting, if you're the people that live in this White House here and your home is spared, you're lucky, you're grateful, you're thankful, you're happy. But there's probably also a bit of sadness in your heart, because your neighbors, the people that you've lived beside in very close proximity along the beach here, along the Pacific Ocean, where their homes are no longer standing. So a bit of a mixed emotional bag, but certainly some heavy emotions tonight. And these firefighters doing an incredible job here. We're going to keep an eye on the progress here as they try to protect this home. For now, we're live along Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. I'm Michelle Fisher. I'll throw it back to you guys in the studio. Mark.
All right, Michelle, as you and Joy have pointed out, homes that survived this fire in the Palisades area sadly are a rarity from what we have been able to see, both anecdotally and from the totals released to us thus far by fire officials and other leaders in the city and county of Los Angeles. As we check in again on the Eaton fire, where 5 people have lost their lives and hundreds of homes and other structures have been lost, we're going to check in once more with Leanne Suter. Leanne?
Yeah, Mark, it's kind of, I feel like a broken record, unfortunately. It's the same scenario over and over again, but I'm going to show it to you. We are on Grandeur Avenue, directly between Mountain View and Figueroa Drive. This is what we're seeing again. We're back to all of the gas lines that are burning, that have become separated because of the fires, and then all of these charred homes here. As I said, we are on Grandeur Avenue, strictly between Mountain View and Figueroa, and every house on this street essentially has been burned to the ground. It's just on repeat, all of this destruction, and it's just such a similar scene where you see all of their belongings burned, to rubble. There literally is nothing left, some walls standing. This house has a shell. You can see one wall remaining there. And as we come out here, I'm going to have Brian Miller start to walk out here. I'm just going to give you an idea. As I said, this is just one home on the street. As we head out the driveway, I'll be able to give you a better idea of what we're talking about. And I know you guys have been seeing it as I drop my phone in the process. You guys have seen it on repeat going into other fires too. The scene that we've seen in the Palisades as well. So as we come out here, there is a house on the corner that was damaged. There's one here. And then let's head to the south, if we can, Brian. And just as we walk along, it's kind of what we did earlier, just when we drove along. We had done a kind of a show and tell to give people an idea of what we're talking about, so you can appreciate just how much damage there is as we're driving along the streets. This one, we're just walking along. Another home here. We continue down, and there's one home standing at the end of the street. It has a little bit of damage, so I'm not sure how much of it has damage. I'm not sure if they'll consider it a total loss, but this one is burned, continuing. Just home after home after home burned. And so now the folks that come in will have to rebuild. But this is going to take so much time. Even the homes that are standing, Mark, I have to say, I don't know how you come back in because there's going to be so much cleanup. And the cleanup from fires like this, it's very specific, and there are rules to it. You can't just come in with any kind of bulldozer and do it. They really want to make sure that you, whoop, Brian, you're getting caught on something here. They have to make sure that you do the cleanup in a proper way because of the contaminants. So anybody that is living around here, I'm not sure how easy it would be to even stay in that home because there's going to take so much time to clean this up, and then you'll begin the rebuilding efforts. But until then, it's going to be a slow process. You also have to deal with the insurance issue. And as we've heard so many of these residents saying up in this area, many of them have had such a struggle getting insurance. Either they didn't have it because they have recently been dropped, which has happened to so many living up and near wildfire areas, or they were able to finally find it, but at, extraordinary rates. We spoke to one resident earlier today. His home had burned to the ground. He had said that his insurance company had dropped him a couple of months ago, but he luckily was able to find some insurance at a rate that was 5 times what he had. So, but he was grateful he had it. But there are so many that we have spoken to that don't have insurance just because they had been dropped by so many of these insurance companies. That's going to be another huge factor of this story, of just trying to rebuild and find the money in order to be able to do it. I'm going to move out of some of the smoke that I can see is coming this way. But the cleanup's going to take a long time, and it's going to be a very slow process. I heard Tim Caputo just talking about it, and he had a great line, and it was so appropriate. These fires start fast, but the end of it is very slow. And while there is no open flame, no open wildfire burning right now that we can see, containment still stands at 0%, and they are not lifting those evacuation orders yet, and it's probably going to be some time before they do, but that's because they have to deal with these issues with all of the gas lines burning. We have seen more of the Edison crews coming in trying to
Leanne?
Trying to do it here.
Yeah, Leanne, we've Thank you for that live report. We have come to the end of our broadcast of our fire coverage today. It has been another day and night of explosive fire danger. Our crews on the ground and in the air have been working around the clock under horrendous conditions to bring you all this information, life-saving information in many cases, and we are not done yet. Eyewitness News will return at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Right now, our fire coverage will continue.
We are staying with.
Now that's going to send embers flying straight up that hill. That is going to send a whole flurry of embers straight up that hill.
Breaking tonight, the Southern California firestorm showing no signs of letting up. Multiple new fires breaking out tonight as resources are already stretched thin. We have live team coverage from a team of reporters across Southern California, beginning with Kevin Ozebek from our sister station KTRK, live at the scene of one of those fires tonight. Kevin.
And Mark, this is the Studio City fire, and what we saw kind of unfold here is about a 90-minute firefight. Now it's dying down now, but you can still see firefighters are focused on this one particular home. We are right at the corner of Sunswept Drive and Veneta Place, and let's get you to some video from Air 7 HD. Around 9:30 this evening, you could see the flames were so much more intense, and in fact, as one of the homes burned, you could actually see part of it collapse. Again, this was roughly a 90-minute firefight. 50 firefighters swarmed this neighborhood here in Studio City, and they did manage to get this fire under control pretty quick. But take a listen to one couple that live in this neighborhood. They started to grow concerned after they started to hear loud bangs, loud explosions. Take a listen.
Well, we were sitting in our house watching television, and
heard what seemed to be gunshots. Of course, we were watching the news and all the fires. Again, heard what seemed to be gunshots and looked outside, saw our next door neighbor's fire coming out of their home. Took a second and went back out again. He went to grab some things.
stream
I'm at a heart attack.
230